You've come here not to think, but to rest, not to solve anything, not to understand, only to return. Return to what? To the hush that existed before you asked your first question, to the soft presence behind your breath, to the temple that was never on a map, only behind your eyes, lit by something quieter than light. There is a kind of monastery that cannot be built. It reveals itself only when the noise has collapsed, when even longing has grown tired, when even thought bows. You are not here by logic. You are here by a kind of spiritual exhaustion, not the kind that breaks you, but the kind that begins to let go of what never held you. Let that be your entrance. Tonight, nothing will be explained, but everything will be understood, not in words, but in the space between them. The monks are already awake. You cannot hear them, but you can feel them. Somewhere in the dark, they are lighting lanterns. Not to teach, not to preach, only to watch the flame flicker in stillness. That is the teaching. No one will demand you rise. No one will ask for silence. Because silence is already here waiting. You do not need to meditate. You do not need to try. You only need to be quiet enough inside that the lantern of awareness begins to glow again. Not for anyone, not for progress, but because peace returns when it is no longer pursued. Close your eyes if they haven't closed already. Let your thoughts sway like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. You are not broken, you are not late, you are not too much, and you are not enough. You are simply tired of thinking your way to peace. And so, now, you'll rest your way into it. Let your breath become your monk bell. Each inhale, a soft invitation. Each exhale, a release from what the world asked you to carry. Let your chest rise and fall as if the wind itself was breathing you. This is not a performance. This is not content. This is a midnight retreat. The walls are made of wind. The roof is made of stars. The doors are already open. There are no mats, no rituals, only the sacred simplicity of being with what is. Even your thoughts are welcome, as long as they do not try to fix anything. You don't need to understand the stories you'll hear tonight. They are not stories in the ordinary sense. They are lanterns, lit and placed before your heart. Some flicker, some burn steady, some vanish into the fog. But all of them point you back to the same place. The silence beneath every sound. If your mind drifts, let it. If a tear comes, let it. If sleep arrives like an old friend, do not ask questions. You are not here to stay awake. You are here to stay open. Let the monks walk beside you unseen, but never far. Let the wind carry the lessons. Let the breath become your gate. Let this night carry you into the stillness that does not need you to earn it. And when the stories begin, do not listen with your mind. Listen with the part of you that already knew the truth, even before it was spoken. Let the hush between words do what words could never do. Return you to what you are, to what you've always been, to the stillness beneath it all. We begin now not at the beginning, but at the place where beginnings stop. You may feel the room change. You may feel yourself soften. That is the monastery arriving, not outside, but within. And in this place, you are finally allowed to rest, even if you're not empty, even if you don't know how. So breathe. Let the lanterns flicker. Let the hush return. Let the monks begin to speak without needing to be heard. Let the silence beneath every sound become your home. Welcome to the night. Welcome to yourself. There is a kind of growth the world never sees. Not the kind that bursts through the soil, but the kind that deepens beneath it. You may feel like nothing is happening, like time is passing, and you are still stuck, still unsure, still buried. But you are not stuck. You are anchoring, rooting, preparing in the most sacred way, without force. Bamboo spends years in the dark. Its roots spread like quiet prayers beneath the surface, digging deep into the silence before it ever shows the world its face. If you were to watch it, you'd think it was doing nothing, but beneath the soil, it is claiming the earth, securing its foundation so when it does rise, it never falls. So what if you are not rising fast? So what if others seem taller, louder, more certain? They may have grown quickly, but not deeply. They may have sprouted in the sun, but without roots in the storm. You are becoming something sacred. Let the soil hold you. Let the darkness not scare you. Let this invisible season be what it is, necessary. The world worships the visible, but the sacred begins in secret. Not everything must be seen to be real. Not everything must move to be growing, and not everything that looks still is still. You do not need to rush. You do not need to break the surface. You do not need to explain why it's taking so long. Your roots are your truth. Your silence is your temple, and your rise when it comes will not be loud. It will be steady, grounded, and unshakable. It is tempting to compare your life to those blooming beside you, to look at their branches, their leaves, their applause. But comparison is for the sunlit. You are still in the sacred dark. There is no need to be afraid of where you are. Even the moon is not always full. Even the tide is not always high. Even the great trees had to start in silence. Let this be your silence. Do not let the noise of the world convince you that something's wrong. Your quiet is not failure. Your stillness is not weakness. Your delay is not denial. You are not behind. You are beneath. And beneath is where power begins. Some roots go wide but never deep. Some grow fast but break in wind. Some reach up without knowing what they're reaching from. But you are becoming something else entirely. Bamboo grows in a way that confuses the impatient. For 5 years, it seems like nothing is happening. But then, in a matter of weeks, it can shoot up feet upon feet. Not because it grew overnight, but because it didn't. Because it waited. Because it trusted. Because it grew down before it ever tried to grow up. What if your waiting is wisdom? What if your delay is design? What if the reason you haven't broken through is because life wants your roots deeper first? Let that be okay. Let yourself belong to the unseen process of becoming. You are not in the way. You are the way. And the path you're walking is not slow, it is sacred. The day will come when your growth becomes visible, but by then, you won't need anyone to notice. You will know, deep in your roots, that you never needed proof, only patience. There is a sound only the earth hears. It is the sound of a root finding its place. It is the sound of a soul that no longer panics when nothing seems to move. Can you hear it? Can you feel that within you even now something is taking hold? Not out of fear, not out of pressure, but out of trust. Trust is the root, not belief, not certainty, just the willingness to stay and deepen. The bamboo does not ask the soil for a deadline. It does not beg the sky for attention. It simply continues, quietly, faithfully, without apology. Let yourself be like that. Let yourself grow without needing to be seen. Let yourself deepen without needing validation. Let the quiet be your strength, not your shame. And when the wind comes and others bend or break, you will not, because your roots were your first prayer, and the silence, your first teacher. Tonight, do not try to rise. Do not try to prove. Do not try to push. Let the soil cradle you. Let the unseen be enough. Let the darkness be your monastery. You are the bamboo that grows in silence. You are not failing. You are becoming. And when the time comes, you will rise. Not with effort, but with grace. Not in noise, but in truth. Until then, stay here, in the deep, in the dark, in the trust, because the most powerful growth is always quiet. There is pain, and then there is what we do with it. The first pain comes like a flash, sharp, uninvited, real. A moment, a blow, a loss, a word that cut, a silence that stung, and that is enough. It should have been enough, but then we pick it up, turn it over, relive it, blame ourselves for not avoiding it, ask questions that have no real answer, and that is the second arrow. The first wound was not your fault, but the second wound, that quiet, invisible one you keep pressing into, that one often is, not out of cruelty, not out of weakness, but out of habit, out of the mind's endless need to do something with the ache. And so it returns to it again and again, like a tongue to a missing tooth, like fingers to a bruise. But no amount of analyzing can undo what already happened. The first arrow has already landed. The question is, will you keep firing the second? In ancient teachings, it is said that the first arrow is pain, the second is suffering, and the second arrow, the one that lasts longer, hurts deeper and wounds. The soul is almost always launched from the mind itself. Why did I let them in? Why didn't I speak up? What's wrong with me that this keeps happening? The pain happened once, but we replay it in surround sound, build a shrine around it, call it healing, when really it's a form of self-punishment. You were hurt. That was real. That is valid. But now, are you still hurting yourself in the name of remembering? The body heals, but the mind, it picks up the arrow long after it's been pulled out, and the soul, she waits for you to stop blaming yourself for being human, waits for you to stop punishing yourself for how you survived, waits for the moment when the second arrow can be dropped, not solved, not explained, just let go. Picture an arrow, still warm from the wound, falling into a quiet bowl of water, not sticking, not piercing, just dissolving thread by thread, fiber by fiber, until nothing remains but stillness. This is what can happen when memory meets mercy, when you stop needing to understand why it hurt and simply accept that it did. When you stop asking what you did wrong and start asking what you can stop carrying. Not all pain needs a theory. Not every ache has a lesson. Some things hurt because they did, and that's all. But the mind loves loops. It loves to replay what it cannot repair. It loves to dig and pick and fix and solve until your entire inner world becomes a courtroom where you are both the accused and the unforgiving judge. This is how the second arrow works. It keeps the trial running, long after the crime has passed. But what if you dismissed the case? What if you let the arrow drop into the water and refused to pull it out again? What if the point wasn't to understand the pain but to stop clinging to it? There is peace in that kind of surrender, a quiet peace, a healing that doesn't need to prove itself to anyone, a dissolving. You may think that by holding on to the pain, you are honoring it, that to release it would be to forget, that to stop hurting would mean you've made peace with what happened, or worse, excused it. But letting go is not agreement. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is mercy for yourself. You were not made to carry this far. You were made to feel it and then let it pass through. But it couldn't pass because you were still wrapped around it. You are not the pain. You are the bowl. You are the stillness that can contain the arrow but not be pierced by it. The mind wants you to think you need to solve it, but your soul is asking something gentler. Can you just stop picking it back up? Not because it didn't hurt, but because it's already done. And you deserve to live like it no longer controls you. There is a moment, often small, easily missed, where you feel the familiar pain rise, and you get to choose. Will I reach for the second arrow again? Will I shame myself for what I felt, what I feared, what I couldn't control? Or will I let it pass like a storm I no longer have to chase? This moment is everything. This moment is freedom. You cannot prevent the first arrow. Life will hurt, people will leave, dreams will break. You will fall. But you do not have to fall on purpose. You do not have to echo the pain by dragging it into every corner of your thoughts. And you don't have to call that healing. Because healing isn't about knowing more, it's about releasing more. Releasing blame. Releasing loops. Releasing the voice that says, "You should have done better." That voice is the second arrow. And the moment you notice it, the moment you see it clearly, you can stop agreeing with it. You can put it down, like an archer who finally lowers the bow. Like a warrior who realizes, there is no war to win here anymore. If your wound had a voice, it would not ask you to relive the moment. It would ask you to breathe around it. To stop squeezing it with your mind. To stop labeling it. It would ask to dissolve not in denial, but in gentleness. And you are allowed to offer that. You are allowed to say, "I have blamed myself long enough." You are allowed to whisper, "This pain already happened. I don't need to make it happen again." You are allowed to sit beside the wound without reopening it. And slowly, like an arrow in water, it becomes something else. A ripple, a lesson, a soft thing that no longer hurts when touched. This is the path, not of forgetting, but of not needing to keep the wound open to remember. You are free to step out of the cycle. You are free to lower your own hand. You are free to stop punishing yourself for surviving. The pain happened once. Let it stay once. Don't let it become your story. Let it dissolve. And let yourself begin again this time, unpierced. This time whole. This time free. There is something sacred about a bowl that has cracked and still holds warmth. You know this already, not through poetry, but through pain. Because you, too, were once full. Full of hope, full of laughter, full of something you thought would last. But then it happened. The silence after the goodbye. The weight of what wasn't said. The hollow ache where something once lived. It didn't just hurt. It shifted you. It marked you in places no one can see, and maybe in places you still don't know how to name. People say you're still whole, that you're strong, that you're healing, but you don't always feel that way, do you? You feel the fracture, the fine lines beneath your skin, where pressure once cracked something open inside you, the space where trust gave way, the soft spot that never closed. And sometimes you look at yourself and wonder if you're still enough, still capable of holding peace, still able to love without leaking, still worthy. But here is what no one told you. A cracked bowl doesn't stop being a bowl. A broken heart doesn't stop being human. And you, even with every visible fracture, are still a vessel for light. Especially now. There's an old Japanese art called kintsugi, the repair of broken pottery with molten gold. Not to hide the damage, but to highlight it. To say, this happened, and it made me more beautiful. Kintsugi doesn't erase the pain. It honors it. It turns the scar into the most precious part of the piece. What if your story could do the same? What if the parts of you you've tried to hide were the very lines where light wants to shine through? What if your worth isn't in being untouched, but in being touched and still able to hold? You don't have to hide your cracks. You don't have to wear perfect skin. You don't have to pretend you weren't shattered. You only have to stay open. Because cracked doesn't mean incapable. It means human. It means honest. It means real. And in the soft quiet of tonight, the moonlight sees you. Not your mask, not your resume, not your improvements. You, the one who stayed. The one who kept pouring love even after everything spilled. The one who didn't throw the bowl away but tried, trembling, to hold it together. You are still holding it, and it is still holding you. Somewhere in your story, the break came. And whether it happened all at once, or quietly over time, you remember the moment you stopped feeling whole. Maybe it was a goodbye you didn't choose. Maybe it was a silence that never ended. Maybe it was the slow crumbling of something you thought would last forever. And after that, you weren't the same. Not ruined, but reshaped. You laughed, but softer. You trusted, but slower. You moved through the world like someone who still loved deeply, but didn't know where to set that love down. It's okay. No one teaches us how to live after the shattering. They say, move on, but never explain how to walk with pieces still rattling inside you. But there's something else they never tell you. You don't have to fix the cracks. You only have to see them differently. Imagine the bowl in your hands, the one you once dropped, the one that broke when life got too heavy. You could throw it away, you could hide it, or you could run your fingers along every fracture. Not to reopen the wound, but to learn its path. To remember that even though it split, you survived. And not just survived, you learned to hold again. Even if your hands still shake, this is what the gold is for. Not to cover the damage, but to celebrate what held. And you have held so much. More than anyone knows, more than you've let yourself grieve. The nights you wept into a pillow no one saw. The mornings you rose with a chest that still ached. The moments you gave, even when empty. Let that be known. Let it be sacred. You are not meant to forget what happened. You are meant to carry it differently, not like a weight, but like wisdom, not as shame, but as story. The cracks are no longer your weakness. They are the lines of your becoming. And if someone looks at you and only sees the damage, they are not meant to sit at your table, because this bowl, your soul, holds moonlight now. And not everyone knows how to drink from something that honest. But you do. You've learned. And in time, you'll teach others too. There will still be nights when you feel the old ache rise, when the light seems too distant, when all you can see are the pieces and not the shape they still make. You'll wonder if the gold is even visible. You'll ask yourself if the work you've done matters. You'll feel tired of trying, of holding, of being the one who always finds a way to heal. Let that night come. Let it pass through. But do not believe it. Because even on the days when you feel useless, when your hands tremble and your chest tightens and your memory loops through the worst moments, you are still holding the bowl. You never dropped it. Not really. You just learned how to carry it differently. And the moon still visits. Not because you're perfect, but because you're open. Not because you're whole, but because you're real. And there is nothing more beautiful to light than a surface that knows it's been broken. Peace is not about forgetting the pain. It's about no longer needing it to define you. It's about sipping from the bowl again, without fear of it falling apart. So let yourself sip, slowly, tenderly. Let the steam rise like a blessing from your own becoming. Let every gold line shine back at you like proof. You are still here, still soft, still sacred. The ones who cracked you may never return. The version of you that shattered may never come back. But something better stands in their place. A vessel forged, not by avoiding life, but by walking through it and remaining kind. Not naive, not weak. Kind. Tonight, don't try to become anything. Don't try to heal, or solve, or transcend. Just sit. Let your palms rest upward. Let the bowl rest in them. And when you feel the light, that soft silver glow from a sky that still believes in you, touch your scars like an old friend. Whisper back, I am not ruined, I am remade. Because this grief you carry, this warmth, you still offer this tenderness that survived the fire. It is enough. The cracks did not ruin you, they revealed you. And tonight, even in silence, even in shadow, you are still catching moonlight. And that means you still can hold love. You always could. Even now, you've spent so much time trying to land, trying to find the right place, the right person, the right purpose, the right version of yourself that finally feels like home. And still, your wings beat in uncertainty. Still, you circle the skies of your own, becoming unsure if you're rising or drifting, unsure if you're closer or further from whatever peace is supposed to feel like. But what if the flight itself was enough? What if not knowing where you're going is not a failure but a form of freedom? There is a kind of peace that doesn't wait at the end of the road. It's not a place, it's not a goal, it's not even clarity. It's the moment you stop gripping the wheel. Stop tightening your chest every time you feel lost. Stop asking the sky to draw you a map, and instead, just breathe it in. Direction is not always sacred. Sometimes it's just control dressed up as purpose. But release is holy. There's a bird in the wind tonight, small, steady, unhurried. It doesn't know where it's going, but it is not lost. It drifts, not with fear, but with trust. It knows the sky will hold it, knows that wings don't need instructions, they only need space. What if you gave yourself that kind of space? To move without needing a reason, to heal without needing a timeline, to be without needing to arrive. What if you are already in the sky you once thought you had to find? Let the question rest. Let the pressure ease. Let the current carry you. You don't always need direction. Sometimes you just need air. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that peace comes from control, that if you just made the right decisions, stuck to the right habits, followed the right steps, you would arrive at a version of life that finally felt still. But stillness is not found in arrival. It's found in surrender. And surrender is terrifying, because it means loosening your grip on all the things you thought you needed to steer. Your past, your pace, your path. And in that loosening, something wild happens. You don't crash, you float. You begin to sense that maybe, just maybe, you were never meant to force your way forward. Maybe your life isn't a highway. Maybe it's a sky. And maybe all this time you thought you were falling. You were actually in flight. Peace is not a destination. It's not hiding around the next corner of clarity. It doesn't wait on the other side of figuring it out. Peace is what arrives when the need to figure it out is gone. You've spent long enough punishing yourself for not knowing, for not having a plan, for not being sure what your purpose is or when things will finally make sense. But there's nothing shameful about not knowing. There's nothing wrong with waking up without a map, with moving gently through a day without achievement, without urgency. The bird does not judge itself for drifting. It simply feels the air and trusts it. Can you do the same? Can you be suspended in the unknown without calling it failure? Because this spacious moment where nothing is solved, but nothing is crashing, this is peace. Not because you found it, but because you stopped chasing it. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing your calling just because you're not sprinting towards something specific. The ones who look sure may not be free. The ones who move fast may not be at peace. You circling slowly in the sky of your own, becoming you, are closer to truth than you think. Because there is a wisdom in not rushing. There is a quiet knowing that emerges only when you stop demanding answers. Sometimes, life doesn't hand you direction, it hands you wind. And wind cannot be steered. It can only be felt, trusted, moved with. That's not weakness, that's grace. You are not here to force a landing. You are here to feel the sky. And some days, that means drifting, not out of confusion but out of surrender. Let go of the story that says you must be going somewhere to be okay. Let go of the voice that panics when the future is blurry. You don't have to know what's next. You only have to stay with what is. This breath, this breeze, this strange freedom that comes when you stop trying to control your healing. Not everything broken needs to be fixed. Some things just need to be allowed to soften, allowed to stretch, allowed to float without fear of falling, like the bird, like you. Tonight, do not ask for purpose. Do not ask for proof. Do not try to earn the right to rest. You are already in the sky, already held. Your wings may be tired, but they are not gone. And if you let them relax even just a little, you might feel something ancient rise in you. The part of you that remembers how to drift, how to circle, how to trust the invisible wind that has always carried you. You don't need direction tonight. You don't need to land. Let the healing happen mid-air. Let the release happen without explanation. Let yourself fly without knowing where. And discover, at last, that peace was never at the end of the path, it was in the letting go of one. Let yourself be carried. Not all peace is planned. Some bonds look like they were meant to hold. The way someone entered your life, the way they spoke your name, the way time wrapped you both in the illusion of permanence. But not all strings are knots. Some are just silk in the wind. Soft, fleeting, not broken, just never tied. And yet, we try to tighten them. We pull, we cling, we twist, trying to make something secure out of something that was only meant to pass through. You know the feeling. That ache when someone stays halfway. That emptiness when you realize the closeness you imagined was never quite real, or at least not mutual. And still you wait. Still you hope. Still you wonder if, maybe, with just a little more effort, the string could turn into something solid. But it won't. Not because you failed, not because you're unworthy, but because some connections are not meant to bind. They're meant to brush against you like wind on your face. Beautiful, temporary, gone before you understood what they were. The grief isn't just for the person. It's for the imagined future, the conversations that never happened, the closeness that never deepened. And more than anything, it's for the part of you that kept holding the string long after it slipped through the other person's hands. You tried, you reached, you softened, you stayed. But the connection wasn't mutual, not fully, not safely. And now you're left with something loose, something that drifts in memory but won't land in reality. It's time to stop tying knots where none were ever promised. Let the string float. Let it become what it is, a whisper, not a bond. There is a deep pain that comes from wanting to be held by something that was never meant to hold you. You gave your warmth. You offered your presence. You leaned in gently, hoping the other would meet you halfway. But they didn't. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they never intended to. Still, you stayed, didn't you? You told yourself, maybe if I'm patient, maybe if I love better, maybe this will become something real. But the truth was always there, floating just beyond your grip. The connection wasn't meant to be tied. Some strings are given to us to remind us how soft we are, not how attached we can be. And yet, we confuse closeness with permanence. We think that if something feels right, it must be ours to keep. But not every moment leads to a bond. Not every glance is a promise. Not every spark becomes a flame. Let this be your quiet unbinding, not a ripping, not a cutting, just an unclenching, the slow release of a string that was never meant to hold your weight. Because you've carried it long enough, the questions, the hope, the silent waiting, you deserve more than half presence. More than maybe, more than effort without return. You deserve to be tied gently, fully, by someone who chooses you without fear, without hesitation, without needing to be convinced. Until then, you're allowed to let the silk float away. It is not abandonment, it is clarity, and clarity is what softens the ache. Clarity is what tells you, it didn't hold because it wasn't yours. Some bonds are sacred because they never tighten. They visit you like wind, then leave like a lesson. No harm, no promise, no end, just air. You were never meant to capture the breeze, only to feel it, only to learn how open your heart can be without turning that openness into a chain. There is a peace that comes when you stop rewriting the story, when you stop asking, "What did I do wrong? Why didn't they stay? Wasn't it real for them too?" You stop blaming yourself for the looseness of something that was always meant to drift. You stop trying to tighten what was born untied. And in that moment you return to yourself, to your stillness, to the hands you used to extend, now folded back into your lap in soft surrender. You don't need to chase the string. You don't need to grasp the ghost of what never became. You only need to let it go without resentment. That's the final part of the unbinding, not just the release but the warmth that follows it. The soft breath that says, "I wanted more, but I don't need it now." And in that breath, you become something new, not someone who lost, but someone who learned when to stop tying yourself to things that won't stay. So tonight, when the memory returns, when the ache swells, when the part of you that still longs for a sign begins to stir, let the string rise, let it shimmer, let it go. No anger, no closure, no final words, just a soft wind and a silk thread unheld, unharmed, unbound. You are allowed to loosen what no longer fits. You are allowed to release what never held you. And you are still whole, even without the knot, especially without the knot. You felt it again today, didn't you? That sudden heaviness, the quiet wave in your chest, the sharp sting in your throat, as if sadness arrived without permission. You weren't expecting it. You didn't invite it. But there it was, hovering quietly behind your smile, settling like mist on an otherwise clear day. And what did you do? You questioned it. You fought it. You tried to explain it. Maybe it's because I didn't sleep well. Maybe it's my hormones. Maybe I'm just overthinking again. But what if the sadness doesn't need a reason? What if your feelings aren't puzzles to solve but weather to move through? A cloud doesn't ask for approval to pass across the sky. It doesn't justify its arrival. It doesn't defend its shape. It just comes. It just moves. And then it goes. You are not weak for feeling. You are not dramatic for crying. You are not broken for waking up with a heaviness you can't explain. You are simply human, and the cloud it's just passing through. Let yourself be the sky today, not the storm, not the sunlight. Just the wide, open space that holds it all. Don't rush the feeling away. Don't ask it to make sense. Feel it and let it float. You are not your sadness. You are not your anger. You are not your anxiety. You are the space beneath, the stillness around, the sky that remains no matter how loud or dark the clouds become. You've been taught to hide your weather, to smile through the fog, to stay positive when your inner world is thunder, to explain your sadness in neat little sentences so others feel more comfortable. But feelings are not polite house guests. They don't knock first. They don't always come dressed in clarity. They don't owe anyone an explanation, not even you. Sometimes sadness comes without a storyline. Sometimes joy arrives without a reason. Sometimes you weep not from pain but from the soft ache of being alive, and that is allowed. You don't have to justify how you feel, not to yourself, not to anyone else. Not every emotion is a crisis. Not every low mood is a flaw. Not every tear is evidence that something's wrong. The sky does not panic when it darkens. It does not label the rain. It does not question the cloud that passes across its blue. It simply holds and waits and trusts the weather to shift when it's ready. What would happen if you stopped judging your sadness, stopped trying to outsmart it, stopped narrating its purpose or proving it's valid? What would happen if you just let it be, Saturday beside it, breathed with it, let it speak or stay silent? There is a quiet power in letting yourself feel without needing to fix. A gentle kind of cleansing that happens when you stop making your emotions wrong. Tonight, be soft with yourself. If the cloud returns, let it drift. If it rains, let it rain. You are not here to control the weather. You are here to witness it without judgment. There will always be people who ask, "Why are you like this? What's wrong now? Aren't you over that yet?" But you are not obligated to answer. You don't need to explain your ache to someone who has never sat still with their own. You don't need to shrink your emotional sky so others don't get wet. Let them move indoors. Let them seek sun elsewhere. You were made for more honest weather. The kind that comes and goes without permission. The kind that isn't polished, but real, human, sacred. You have spent enough time apologizing for the way your chest tightens without warning, for the way your voice softens when it's holding back tears, for the way your joy is sometimes interrupted by something quieter, darker, unexplainable. But what if nothing needs to be fixed? What if you are not too sensitive, but exquisitely alive? You are not unstable. You are seasonal. You are not a problem. You are a pattern of light and shadow, constantly shifting, but always whole. And that cloud you feel now, it will pass. Not because you forced it to, but because all clouds eventually do. Let this be your practice. To feel without naming, to soften without suppressing, to let the sky within you change without needing to explain it to anyone, including yourself. Tonight, if sadness drifts in, let it stay, let it move, let it rain, and know always that you are the sky. You are the vastness. You are the witness of weather, not the weather itself. Let your emotions come and go like clouds, like wind, like water through your open hands. You do not need to hold them. You do not need to define them. You do not need to justify them. Let them float. Let them darken. Let them pass. And as they do, remember, you were never the cloud. You were the sky that held it softly, briefly, and without shame. You keep thinking you need to do more, say more, be more. That stillness isn't enough. That presence without performance has no value. That unless you shine like the sun, loud and warm, and seen by many, you haven't done anything worth offering. But what if your quiet glow is the very thing someone else needs to feel safe? What if your stillness isn't emptiness but light? Picture a room, bare, quiet, no noise, no movement, and in the center, a single oil lamp. Its flame small, its glow soft, but steady. That room is not dark because the lamp is there. That room is not lonely because the light is real. You are that lamp, not the chandelier in a palace, not the sun above a crowded street, just a small, faithful presence that warms the space you enter without needing to explain itself. You don't need to dazzle. You don't need to speak the loudest. You don't need to convince anyone that you matter. You already do. Because you are here, and your quiet light, it reaches further than you think. Let that be enough for now. You're allowed to shine softly. You're allowed to take up space in silence. You're allowed to be the lamp in the empty room. The world is loud. It rewards noise. It praises those who shine the brightest, speak the fastest, move the most. But what the world often forgets is how sacred a single light becomes when everything else has dimmed. When someone is alone in their grief, they don't need fireworks. They need a quiet glow that doesn't leave. When someone feels lost, they don't need perfect answers. They need presence, unmoving, unafraid. That is what you offer. Not spectacle, not performance, but something far more enduring, gentle illumination. You've mistaken your stillness for lack. You've assumed that because you're not shouting, you're not contributing, that because you're not shining like others, you're not helping. But the lamp never questions its flame. It never says, "I am only one wick, what difference can I make?" It simply burns, softly, faithfully, and the room changes because of it. Someone rests easier because of it. Someone finds the courage to breathe because of it. Someone feels less alone because the light did not leave. This is the quiet gift you carry, not to overwhelm the darkness, but to refuse to go out when it matters most. There will be moments when the room is empty, when no one is watching, when it seems like your light is wasted. You may ask yourself, what's the point of shining if no one sees me? Why stay present if it doesn't seem to matter? But the lamp does not burn for applause. It burns because that's what it was made for, because light, even when unnoticed, still warms the space, still softens the dark, still reminds the room it is not abandoned. You are allowed to be that steady, to glow without an audience, to offer warmth to no one in particular, and yet to everyone, all at once. This is not about being enough for others. This is about realizing you've always been enough, even when alone. Let go of the need to prove your light. Let go of the pressure to radiate constantly. You are not a lighthouse flashing warnings. You are a lamp, simple, sacred, near. And near is enough. There is peace in that. There is truth in that. There is power in knowing that you don't have to do anything tonight, except remain lit, not to fix, not to guide, not to inspire, just to exist soft and warm and unwavering. Let your presence be the light. Let your stillness be the flame. Let your body, your breath, your being illuminate the space without effort. Tonight, don't perform peace. Don't dress it up or make it louder. Let it sit with you like an old friend who doesn't need you to speak. The room is not empty, because you are here. And you, just as you are enough to light it. You've spent so much of your life looking for the opening, the right path, the right person, the right moment that would finally unlock something in you. You've stared at invisible walls and called them fate, stared at silence and called it rejection, stared at yourself and whispered, "Why can't I break through?" But what if the wall was never there? What if you were never locked out? What if the gate wasn't missing but standing wide open the whole time? It is terrifying to consider that the thing you were waiting for permission to do, you could have done yesterday. That the healing you thought would come from someone else was always within reach. That the peace you've been chasing was never behind the gate, but beneath your fear of walking through it. You kept waiting for the sign, for the blessing, for the perfect feeling that would make you feel ready. But sometimes, the truth is not a lightning strike. It's a soft wooden frame sitting quietly in a field under moonlight. And the gate is open, always has been. You just didn't believe you could walk through it. So tonight, look again. See the space, not the barrier. See the light beyond, not the shadow before. See the truth. You are not stuck. You are not late. You are not locked out. The gate is not keeping you out. Fear is, and fear was never built to last. Fear is a master illusionist. It paints walls where there are none. It takes old wounds and stacks them like bricks. It echoes voices from the past until they sound like law. You're not ready. You're too broken. You don't deserve ease. And slowly, you begin to believe that peace lives somewhere beyond you, that joy is guarded, that freedom is for the ones who've earned it. But freedom is not a destination, it is a doorway that never closed. You were simply taught to stop looking for it, to walk in circles around it, to live as if liberation was something someone else had to give you. But no one holds that key, because there is no lock. It was never about escape. It was about noticing the open space that's always been waiting for you to step through. So why didn't you walk sooner? Because your fear looked like a gatekeeper. Because your past whispered warnings. Because you confused exhaustion with imprisonment and doubt with proof. But you're allowed to question those stories now, allowed to turn toward the moonlight and see, finally, that the only thing between you and peace is the belief that there's something in your way. Tonight, stand at the edge. Feel the cool air. Notice how nothing is stopping you. The past isn't pulling you back. The present isn't pushing you forward. Everything is still and open. You are not being asked to force anything, only to notice what's already available. Peace is not beyond the gate. Peace is in the fact that the gate was never closed. Imagine your life if you stopped waiting to be let in, if you stopped asking the world for permission to rest, to heal, to leave, to begin. What if the only thing that ever needed to open was your willingness? No grand moment, no external sign, just the quiet decision to stop living like you were trapped when you were always free. This is what liberation feels like. Not a shout, not a breakthrough, just the gentle realization that nothing is holding you anymore, that every locked gate was made of thought, and every wall was built with worry, and once you see through it, it dissolves, not with effort, but with awareness. Let tonight be the night you stop trying to escape, because there is nothing left to escape from. The past is not a prison, it's a path you've already walked. You don't live there anymore. And the future is not a gate, it's a field, open, waiting, ready when you are. So take one step, not forward, just inward. Feel what it's like to be unblocked, unbound, untrapped, and maybe for the first time, unafraid. Because you see it now, don't you? The gate, that old image you've held for years, was never locked, never guarded, never even closed. It was just waiting for you to believe you could walk through it. And now you do. There was once a monk who wandered into the forest and never returned, not because he was lost, but because he was finally found. He walked away from the temple one morning, tired not of prayer, but of pretending, tired of being the calm one, tired of being the wise one, tired of being anyone at all. He sat by a stream and placed his folded robes beside him. He watched the water move and felt something in him begin to do the same. Not with effort, not with sadness, but with a soft dissolving. The name he had been given slipped away, not forgotten, just no longer needed. He didn't say goodbye to it. He didn't curse it. He just let it rest on the bank, like something sacred and finished. We carry so many names: daughter, survivor, leader, failure, healer, mistake. Some we chose, some were given. Some were etched into us when we were too young to resist. But all of them, even the beautiful ones, are only garments, temporary, useful, but not the body beneath. And there comes a moment in every honest life where the robe must be removed, where the name must be set down, where we stop asking, "Who am I?" and begin to ask, "Who is asking?" Tonight, let yourself become nameless, not lost, just open. There is a kind of peace that can only be touched when the self steps aside. It's strange, isn't it, how we cling to our names like they are the shape of our soul. We say, "I am anxious, I am broken, I am strong, I am nothing," as if a single sentence could contain the vastness of what we are. But none of these names are true. Not fully, not always. They are moments, masks, labels written in sand. Even your most sacred identities, the ones you're proud of, are not who you are. They are roles you stepped into. They are echoes of old moments, not the quiet presence that watches them come and go. The monk by the stream knew this. He had been praised. He had been followed. He had been bowed to by younger students, called master, called teacher, called saint. But he felt something missing, not outside him but inside the mask. And so he stopped. He let the names fall from his shoulders like worn cloth. He sat with the sky, the water, the trees. And slowly, the one called monk became simply this: awareness. You do not need to abandon your life. You do not need to renounce your name, but you are allowed to question it. You are allowed to sit beside the stream of your own existence and notice how many of your thoughts begin with "I am," and how few of them are actually you. You are not your anxiety. You are the space it moves through. You are not your history. You are the silence beneath the story. You are not even your healing. You are what notices the healing unfold. There is nothing to fix in this space, nothing to prove, nothing to define, only presence, only breath, only the gentle clarity that arises when identity is no longer holding the mirror. The monk never returned to the monastery, not because he rejected it, but because he no longer needed to be seen in order to be real. He didn't disappear. He simply dissolved into the trees, into the stillness, into the part of life that doesn't need to speak its name to exist. And in that silence, he felt something he had never touched as someone, a vastness that did not end where his thoughts ended, a lightness that didn't require a title to shine. This is what happens when you forget yourself, not in confusion, but in peace. You stop being the story and start being the space the story moves through. You don't need to abandon your world to find this freedom. You don't need to burn the robe. Only set it down from time to time and remember what's beneath it. Tonight, try this. Let go of the name you've been repeating, the one you whisper to yourself in hard moments, the one others gave you, the one that keeps trying to explain your worth. Lay it beside you like a folded robe. You do not need to be healed. You do not need to be important. You do not need to be good. You are already something deeper, a presence that cannot be named, a stillness that cannot be measured, a watcher, a listener, a being, not a brand. You are not the roles you play, not the wounds you carry, not the triumphs you've survived. You are what remains when all those things fall away, and that is more than enough. The monk never left. He just became the wind in the trees, the quiet beside the stream, the light that flickers behind closed eyes. And if you're still enough tonight, right now, you can feel him, not as a story, but as a mirror, showing you what you've always been beneath the name, beneath the role, beneath the ache, free. It's not easy being the first to let go. There's a loneliness in it, a quiet ache in the moment you realize you cannot keep holding on just because others are. You look around, and all the other leaves are still clinging, still bright, still convinced that staying attached means staying strong. And yet, you feel the weight. The truth that's come not to destroy, but to whisper, it's time. Time to stop trying to stay where your roots no longer reach. Time to stop pretending the season hasn't changed. Time to loosen. And even though your branches still want to hold you, you let go. Not because you're weak, but because something deeper in you knows that surrender is not the end. It's the beginning of falling into your next truth. The first leaf always feels exposed. Others will look and wonder, why now? Why couldn't they hold on longer? But you don't owe the tree an explanation. You are not disloyal for listening to your soul. You are not ungrateful for knowing when the time has come. There is a sacred grief in being the first to walk away, the first to stop trying, the first to accept what others are still denying. But what feels like death is actually the start of release. The air carries you now. The ground is waiting to hold you, and your letting go creates the space for the others to eventually follow. We are taught to hold on, to make things work, to stay committed, to endure, even when the branch grows cold beneath us. Letting go is painted as giving up, as failure, as a weakness of the spirit. But what if letting go is the bravest thing you can do? What if surrender is not collapse, but clarity? To release what no longer feeds you is not rejection. It is reverence. It is honoring the truth that the season has changed, even if others are still pretending it's spring. You've tried, you waited, you gave. You bent toward the light long after the sun turned away. You shaped yourself around someone else's silence. You stayed loyal to a version of life that no longer made room for your breath. But there comes a moment when holding on becomes heavier than the fall. A moment when your fingers begin to ache from gripping, when your roots pull back, when your spirit whispers, "It's okay, you can let go now." And so you do. You don't need applause, you don't need agreement. You just need the courage to trust that falling isn't failure, it's flight in a softer form. Because the leaf doesn't fight gravity, it meets it and finds peace in being carried instead of clinging. There is a grace in the way the leaf drifts. It does not rush, it does not flail. It does not demand that the wind explain where it's taking it. It simply releases and trusts. Can you do the same? Can you let go without needing the next branch to catch you? Can you surrender without needing to call it a plan? Can you fall gently, not as someone defeated, but as someone free? This is what others won't understand right away. They'll see the letting go and think you've lost something, but they won't feel what you feel. The relief of unburdening, the soft ache of truth, the beauty in no longer forcing yourself to hold what has already let go of you. And still you may grieve. You may look back at the tree, at all the memories made in shade, at the ones who are still holding on. You may ache for them, for the you that stayed too long, for the quiet pain of being the first to say, "This no longer serves me." That grief is holy. Don't silence it. Don't rush past it. But don't confuse grief with wrongness. You are not wrong for releasing. You are not selfish for choosing freedom over familiarity. You are not broken for wanting to feel light again. You are simply becoming what comes next, becoming what you were always meant to be before clinging made you forget. And so, you drift, not away but toward a softer soil, toward a slower rhythm, toward the version of yourself that no longer fears the fall. Tonight, let yourself let go, not just in thought, but in breath, in body, in being. Whisper back to the part of you still clutching, "It's okay to release. It's okay to rest. It's okay to be the leaf that let go first." Because that leaf, the one carried by moonlight, guided by nothing but trust, is not lost. It is finally free. There is a quiet moment just before the spill, when the cup is already too full, but no one notices. The surface tension holds. The hand continues pouring, and for a breathless second, it seems like it will hold it all. But then it doesn't. The tea slips over the edge and runs in soft rivulets down the sides of the cup, gathering in the wooden tray below, uncontained, uninvited, unstoppable. This is how it happens inside you, too. You keep holding, smiling, nodding, trying to contain every drop of every task, every wound, every conversation, every expectation, until one day, without warning, you spill. Not because you are weak, but because everything, even kindness, has a limit. Even peace cannot stay where there is no room for it to settle. You were taught to hold it all, to be strong, to stay full, to never let anything fall through the cracks. But holding too much doesn't make you generous. It makes you heavy. It makes your peace overflow in ways you didn't intend, snapping at someone you love, crying without knowing why, waking up tired no matter how long you sleep. Your body remembers the overflow, even when your mind pretends everything's fine. Tonight, you don't need to explain it. You only need to admit you are full. And what spills is not shame. It is simply truth. There is no virtue in overflowing. It is not a badge of honor to keep saying yes while your inner silence begs you to stop. You were not made to be a reservoir for everyone else's needs. You were not born to hold the pain, the pressure, the weight without ever releasing. Even the sacred tea ceremony honors the pause. The moment the cup nears fullness, the hand stills, the pouring stops. Not because the tea is unworthy, but because the vessel deserves respect. You too are a vessel, and you too deserve the pause. But somewhere along the way, you were taught that love means overgiving, that strength means never asking to stop, that value means holding more than is fair, more than is kind, more than is human. So you became the always available one, the one who absorbs it all, the one who lets the tea run down her sides and calls it service. But the truth is this: you are not here to hold more than you can. You are here to notice when enough is enough, and to let what spills, spill. Not in shame, not in silence, but in sacred permission. The tray below the cup does not apologize. It simply catches. It lets what cannot be held rest. You are allowed to do the same. You can set down what's too much. You can breathe before answering. You can cry without solving. You can feel the overflow and say, "This is as far as I go." And that isn't failure, that's wisdom. It's how the cup learns to stay full without drowning itself. Let tonight be the night you stop gripping the cup so tightly. Let it tilt a little. Let the excess go. Let the heaviness that never belonged to you slip quietly into the tray beneath you. You don't have to hold the expectations anymore. Not theirs, not your past self's, not the voice inside you that says you're only lovable if you never spill. You've proven enough. Now, release. Release the smile you wear when you're tired. Release the conversation you keep rehearsing. Release the guilt for needing space, for not answering, for softening. You are not letting anyone down. You are letting what cannot stay go. The most beautiful cups don't overflow. They stop, they breathe, they honor the edge as sacred. And you can too. You can walk out of a room without an explanation. You can put down your phone and return to yourself. You can say, "This is too much," and still be kind, still be whole. You don't need to overflow to be enough. You only need to be still long enough to notice the quiet inside you that says, "Please, make space for me too." That voice matters. That silence deserves room. So tonight, let the tea spill. Let it bless the tray. Let it remind you that what leaves was never meant to be forced to stay. You are not broken for being full. You are not wrong for letting go. You are not weak for needing a pause. You are sacred, like the hand that stops pouring, like the cup that breathes, like the silence that says, "I choose peace over pressure." Let what spills spill. Let what was too much fall away. And in the space that remains, let your stillness return. You've paddled for so long. Your arms have forgotten what it feels like to rest. Every morning, the same motion. Grip the oars, push forward, make progress, survive. You've battled winds you couldn't name, currents you didn't choose, storms that arrived unannounced. And through it all, you've kept rowing. Because that's what strong people do, right? They push, they try, they keep going no matter how tired they are. But tonight, there is no storm. The water is still. The sky, quiet. The path ahead, unknown, but soft. And in this stillness, a question rises from the deep. What if you let go of the oars? Not forever, not out of defeat, but just now. What if you allowed the boat to drift without needing to know where it's going? What if you trusted that life could carry you without your constant control? Not aimlessly, but wisely. Not lost, but led. There is a current beneath your struggle that has always known where to take you. It was never waiting for effort. It was waiting for surrender. It takes courage to row, but it takes a different kind of courage to stop, to unclench your hands, to set the oars down quietly beside you, to lean back into the wood and trust the water beneath you to know what to do. You've been taught to hustle, to strive, to control your path as if your value depends on your direction. But direction without peace is just noise, and progress without trust is just exhaustion wearing a mask. There is no shame in drifting. The boat does not lose its purpose when it stops moving by force. It simply begins to listen to the current, to the wind, to the wider intelligence of the water that knows where it's going even when you don't. Can you imagine that? Being carried. Without needing to explain yourself, without needing to earn rest. You are not lazy. You are not behind. You are not doing it wrong. You are learning to float. You are learning to belong, even when you don't know what comes next. The river does not panic. It does not rush to prove itself. It does not grip the edges of the bank or ask for a map. It simply moves not with answers, but with rhythm. Let yourself be part of that rhythm now. Let the water hold you like it was always meant to. There's something sacred that happens when you stop trying to steer. You begin to feel again. Not the pressure of direction, but the quiet joy of being supported by something larger than your will. The sun warms your face. The breeze brushes your shoulders. The sky opens like a slow exhale, and you realize you're still moving, even without effort, even without control, even without knowing what's next. The boat was never lost, only waiting for you to trust the current. Maybe you don't need a destination right now. Maybe this moment, this float is the arrival. The deep breath you didn't know you'd been holding, the silence you didn't know you'd earned, the softness of being carried without needing to be impressive. There is a wisdom in the water, a path without pavement, a knowing that asks for surrender, not strategy. Let it hold you, let it guide you, not toward something specific but toward peace. If your hands still ache, that's okay. If your mind still whispers, do something, that's okay too. But tonight, answer with stillness, answer with trust. Let the oars remain at rest. Let the boat remain quiet. Let your body, your breath, your being, remember what it feels like to be enough without effort. You were never meant to row forever. You were meant to release. And in that release, you don't sink. You don't vanish. You rise. You drift. You return to yourself. The river knows the way. Not all fire is fierce. Not every flame is meant to consume. Not every heat is danger. There is a fire that dances, but never scorches. A warmth that holds, but never demands. You may not have known this kind of fire before, because what you were shown was chaos. Flames that took more than they gave. Love that left you in ashes. Desire that burned through everything until there was nothing left of you. So you learned to fear your own heat, to dim your glow, to quiet your craving for closeness, for beauty, for intensity, just to stay safe. But the truth is, you were never the fire that destroyed. You were the coals beneath the snow, alive, steady, soft with purpose, still warm even after the storm. You don't need to fear your warmth. It was never the problem. The fire inside you isn't here to burn your life down. It's here to light it gently, to cook slow meals of presence, to melt the frost that others left behind. This fire does not consume. It comforts. It belongs to you, and it does not ask you to be anyone else. Tonight, let the coals glow again, not in fury, not in urgency, but in calm, in quiet confidence, in the holy knowing that your heat is safe. There is a kind of love that doesn't flare up and disappear, a kind of warmth that doesn't rush to claim or conquer. It moves slowly like fire beneath snow, unseen but certain, quiet but alive. This is the warmth you've longed for, not the kind that overwhelms you, but the kind that stays. But to believe in that kind of fire again, you have to unlearn what hurt you. You have to stop thinking your glow is dangerous. Stop thinking your sensitivity is too much. Stop believing that every spark will turn into smoke. Not all passion leads to pain. Not all fire leads to loss. Some heat heals, some flames stay soft. Some burn not to destroy but to awaken. You've mistaken intensity for threat, mistaken your own desire for something to be ashamed of. And so you buried it. You covered the coals with snow. You silenced your craving. You convinced yourself that calm meant cold and safety meant emptiness. But look again. Beneath the snow, something glows. Something in you never went out. It stayed alive, quietly pulsing, waiting for your permission to rise. Not in fury, not in chaos, in warmth, in life, in sacred stillness. You are allowed to glow again. Not for anyone else, not to prove anything. Just because you're alive and you're ready to feel without fear. There is a sacred moment when you realize you don't have to shrink to stay safe. When you remember that warmth is not a weapon, it's a welcome. You've spent years dimming yourself, years trying not to be too excited, too loving, too emotional, too much. Because somewhere along the way, someone told you that your heat was dangerous. That if you lit the fire inside you, you'd scare people off, burn bridges, break things. But they were wrong. You are not wildfire. You are ember. You are breath-warmed hands in the cold. You are the slow burn that keeps others alive through winter. You were never meant to go cold just to make others comfortable. Tonight, you get to reclaim your fire. Not as rage, not as chaos, as presence. As warmth that sits with someone in silence and says, "I'm here, you're safe." As heat that softens you from within, instead of setting you ablaze. You can glow now and still rest. You can feel deeply and not be destroyed by it. You are not here to burn yourself up just to light the room. You are the room. You are the flame and the hearth and the home. And you, as you are, steady and glowing beneath everything, are enough. Let the coals stay lit. Let them breathe gently beneath the snow. Let them warm your bones and remind you, this fire is yours. It does not ask for fuel you don't have. It does not punish. It does not prove. It simply glows because it can. Because you can. You are safe here. You can feel without breaking. You can burn without losing yourself. This is the fire that doesn't burn. This is the love that stays. This is you at peace with your own heat. There was a time you cared how the world said your name. You shaped yourself around its syllables, polished the edges of your voice so it would echo back the version of you others liked best. You became careful, curated, named not by spirit, but by story. The responsible one, the strong one, the pretty one, the broken one, the smart one, the one who made it look easy. And for a while, you wore those names like armor. But over time, they became heavy, because even praise is a prison if it only reflects who you've been, not who you're becoming. One day, you stood near the shore and wrote your name in the sand, not for legacy, not for memory, but to watch it disappear. And the wind came, not with violence but with mercy. It brushed away the letters until only the sand remained, still whole, still sacred, still untouched beneath the image. And in that vanishing, you felt free. You are not the name. You are what remains when the name is gone. You've spent much of your life trying to be understood, trying to make yourself clear in the eyes of others, to be seen correctly, spoken of kindly, defined in a way that felt fair. But the truth is, no one can carry your name the way you feel it. They say it with history attached, with expectation, with memory that belongs more to them than to you. And so, even your truest efforts are filtered through someone else's story. You became the version of yourself others could describe, easier to digest, easier to place. But you are not meant to be placed. You are meant to move, to shift like seasons, to change like tides. No name, no role, No title can keep up with that kind of soul. Let the wind carry your name. Let it lift the image others held of you and scatter it across the dunes. Not out of bitterness, but out of release. You are not here to be consistent in the eyes of others. You are here to be true to your own unfolding. Some will not recognize you anymore. Some will question why you drifted. Some will say, "You've changed," and they will be right. Because the self you were was not a mistake. It was a beginning. But now, you are becoming sky, becoming wind, becoming something too wide to name. There is a soft kind of freedom that comes when you stop needing to be remembered, when you no longer measure your worth by the stories others tell when you leave the room, when you stop shaping your life to fit the expectations of someone else's memory. You are not here to be held in place. You are here to move through this world, like breath seen only by what it stirs. Let them forget. Let the image fade. Let the old definitions collapse quietly into the sand. You are not disappearing. You are dissolving into truth. Tonight, stand with the wind at your back. Close your eyes. Feel your name being lifted from your shoulders, the weight of being known, the pressure to be recognizable, the ache of being misunderstood. Let all of it rise into the night air and go. You were never the story. You were never the label. You were never the echo others held onto. You are what the wind cannot carry away. You are the movement itself. No monuments need to be built for you. No plaque needs to hold your name. No voice needs to say, "She was this, he was that." Because your presence, your true presence, was never made of words. It was felt, in the pause between breaths, in the warmth that lingered after you left, in the way you let go without needing anyone to understand why. That is enough. Let the wind carry your name now. Let it lift the old image. Let it erase the outline so your soul can finally breathe. Because you, whoever you become next, are still here, still real, even when the name is gone. There is a bridge in the forest that no one talks about. It does not shout. It does not shine. It does not call out your name from the distance. It waits, covered in moss, wrapped in fog, with wooden planks that have seen many seasons and never asked any of them to hurry. This bridge was built for stillness, and it does not mind how long you take to find it. You've spent so long rushing your healing, telling yourself, "I should be over this by now," feeling guilty for how much still aches, for how slow your steps have become. But healing is not a race. Grief is not a schedule, and no one arrives at wholeness by force. You don't need to cross tonight. You don't even need to approach. You are allowed to sit at the edge, to breathe, to wait, to gather whatever strength you still have without needing to perform it. The bridge will not disappear. It was built for moments like this. You've been taught that moving on means moving fast, that if you don't leap forward, you'll be left behind, that if you pause too long, you'll forget how to begin again. But healing does not respond to pressure. It does not bloom in urgency. It unfolds like mist slowly, in its own rhythm, under the weight of nothing. The bridge understands this. It creaks with patience. It does not demand that your next step be certain, only that it be yours. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not weak for standing at the edge and simply waiting. The fog may be thick tonight. You may not see what's on the other side. You may wonder if you're ready, if you'll ever be ready, if maybe it's safer to stay where you are. And that, too, is sacred. There is no shame in stillness, no failure in taking one breath instead of one step. You can sit here for as long as you need. The bridge will hold its shape. The moss will keep growing. The planks will remain just as willing as they were the day they were made. Because some parts of you don't need to be pushed, they need to be witnessed. They need to be held without being hurried. And this moment, right now, is the holding. There are people who crossed their bridges quickly. They sprinted. They didn't look back. And from afar, it may seem like they've reached something important. But speed does not mean peace. Distance does not mean depth. Some of the deepest healing happens not while walking, but while sitting in the fog with your own heart in your hands and no plan to fix it, only to feel it. The bridge understands this too. It doesn't count your steps. It doesn't punish you for staying. It was never built to rush you across. It was built to offer you a way when you are ready and not a moment sooner. So if tonight you choose not to move, know this: that is still progress. Because honoring your pace is the first act of trust. Because staying with yourself is the beginning of true return. The fog will lift when it's time. Your legs will know when to rise. And when you do step forward, it will not be out of pressure, but presence. Let the bridge wait for you. Let the path remain quiet. Let the mist curl around your hesitation like a blanket, not a barrier. There is no rush, no deadline, no should have. You are not missing your life. You are living it exactly here, exactly now. And when you are ready, your feet will move without force, without fear, because you will know the bridge has always been waiting, not to be crossed, but to remind you that even when you don't move, you are still held. The storm came suddenly, no warning, no gentle shift of wind, just thunder, loud and alive, breaking open the night. Rain fell sideways. Branches groaned. Shutters rattled on the old monastery walls. But inside, in a small candle-lit room with a single mat and folded robe, a monk slept. Not carelessly, not in ignorance, but in peace. Because the storm was not stronger than his stillness. You've had nights like this, haven't you? Where everything shook at once, your thoughts, your plans, your sense of what was safe. Where the noise outside felt like a mirror for the chaos within, and you tried to fix it, tried to push the thoughts away, tried to solve the sky. But the monk teaches something different. He does not fight the weather. He does not fear the thunder. He lets it pass, because he knows he is not the storm. He is the space it moves through. You've been taught to react, to brace, to prepare for every gust, every downpour, every crack of lightning. Because somewhere along the way, you were told that storms meant danger, that you had to do something when they came. But not every storm is a threat. Some are simply passing weather. Loud, yes. Uncomfortable, yes. But temporary, and more importantly, not personal. The monk sleeps not because he is unaware, but because he has stopped confusing the sky with himself. You are allowed to do the same. You are allowed to watch the mind's thunder without trying to silence it. To feel the rain of old memories without building a roof of denial. You are allowed to sit beside your fear and say, I see you. You may stay, but I won't bow to you tonight. This is not avoidance. This is clarity. You are not the thoughts that come in panic. You are not the emotion that arrives in a crash. You are not the storm. You are the candle. Still lit, still warm, still here. Even while the wind howls at your door, peace is not found in silence. Peace is found in not needing silence to be still. Let the thunder speak. Let the sky shake. Let the story play out around you. You are the monk, and you do not need to wake. The monk will rise in the morning to the smell of wet earth, to branches scattered across the path, to silence after the storm. But he will not rise afraid, because his body remembers that nothing broke him, that the storm was real, but it never entered his breath, never touched the stillness he curled into like a prayer. You can live like that too, not untouched by life, but unclaimed by its noise. There will always be storms in the world, in your thoughts, in your relationships, in the memories that strike like lightning even after years of clear skies. But you are not the flash. You are not the thunder. You are not the flood. You are the one who witnesses it and stays whole. The one who lets it pass without trying to stop it. The one who trusts that not all noise requires response, that not all chaos needs taming. Let tonight be a new kind of stillness. Let the wind knock. Let the doubt rise. Let the ache thunder inside your chest. But do not mistake it for who you are. You are not the storm. You are the bed beneath it. You are the candle still glowing after the final crack of sky. You are the monk who knows storms may rage, but I remain. Somewhere in the center of a quiet room, there is a flame. It doesn't roar. It doesn't burn with urgency. It simply remains upright, gentle, alive. You wouldn't notice it if you were rushing. You wouldn't respect it if you were looking for spectacle. But if you sat long enough, and if you stopped asking for signs loud enough to drown yourself, you would see it. It's trembling, not out of fear, but because that's what all real light does. It flickers. This is not a story of a candle lit in stillness. It is a story of a candle that kept shining even when the wind came. The kind of wind you feel in your chest when doubt arrives. The gusts that swirl through your ribs when your voice shakes during truth. The breeze that sneaks in when you think you've healed, but find yourself crying anyway. The candle knows that wind. It knows the cold that tries to blow you out. And still it flickers, but it doesn't die. You've spent too long thinking trembling was a sign of weakness. You've mistaken the quiver in your voice for a lack of worth. You've seen your own hands shake and thought, I'm not ready. I'm still broken. I shouldn't speak yet. I shouldn't try yet. But let me tell you something. Sacred light isn't less because it moves. Fire doesn't lose its truth because it bends. And you are not failing because you feel the wind. There is a monk who once sat for many winters in a wooden temple, lighting a single candle at dusk and watching how it danced in the cold night air. Each evening, as the paper doors groaned and the winter air entered, the flame would waver. Sometimes it leaned so far to one side, it looked as if it might disappear, but it didn't. The monk never rushed to protect it. He never cupped his hands around it in panic. He never scolded the wind for visiting. He simply watched. He whispered, "It is still light, even when it moves." And perhaps that's what you need to hear tonight, that you are still light, even when you shake, even when your voice wavers mid-prayer, even when your heart forgets the words halfway through healing. You've built your idea of success around stillness. You've built your definition of peace around silence. But peace isn't always still, and strength isn't always quiet. Sometimes, peace is the ability to remain lit even when the room shifts, even when the breath you take is laced with memory, even when your knees buckle under the weight of being seen. You think you have to wait until the wind is gone to move forward. You think your purpose requires the perfect weather, but it doesn't. Your purpose was born in storms, it was shaped in trembling, and it shines precisely because it knows how to flicker and still glow. The wind is not your enemy, it is your proving ground. It is the breath that says, if you can stay lit here, you can stay lit anywhere. The monk once wrote in the margin of his worn sutra, "Do not beg the wind to leave, just learn not to bow when it arrives." You have bowed too many times, not in reverence but in fear. You've lowered your head not to honor the moment, but to escape it. You've called it surrender, but it was hesitation. You've called it wisdom, but it was avoidance. There is a time to bow, but not when your light is needed, not when the room grows cold and someone is waiting to be warmed by your presence. This is that time. The air is not still, the doubts are not silent, but you are here, and you are glowing. Let it shake, let it move. Let the wind test you. And then, let yourself remember, you are still lit, even now, especially now. The wind is louder tonight. And maybe that's what makes this moment sacred. Not the calm, but the fact that you showed up anyway. There is a kind of courage that doesn't roar. It doesn't raise fists. It doesn't even speak. It just stays. It stays when the doubts come rushing back like an old song you swore you deleted. It stays when your hands are sweating and your voice is unsure. It stays when no one claps, no one sees, no one saves. And still you stand. And still you speak. And still you glow. You're not supposed to feel unshaken. You're not supposed to glide through the storm like it doesn't touch you. That's not how it works. The candle never promised not to move. It only promised not to die. There's a strength in that. The kind that doesn't ask for admiration, only continuation. And if you're looking for a sign that your path is valid, look no further than the fact you haven't stopped. You've bent, you've cried, you've questioned, but you're still here. That is not failure. That is resilience in its purest form. The world taught you to associate stillness with strength. But Florence said, you must live fully in the face of appearances. That includes trembling. That includes cracked voices and unfinished sentences. That includes showing up before you're fully convinced you belong. This is your light, not because it burns perfectly, but because it refuses to go out. There are nights when you will want to quit, when the winds come from every direction. Criticism, doubt, fatigue, fear, memories that haunt you just before you fall asleep. On those nights, you will feel your flame pull low. You will feel your chest tighten, your breath shallow. But that is not the end. That is the test. Because light, true light, reveals itself when darkness leans in. And if you can stay lit during that, you'll never fear the wind again. There was a girl who once lit a candle for her mother every night. Her mother had passed years before, but she believed the flame somehow reached her. Each time the wind blew the window curtain aside, the flame would tremble, and every time the girl would panic, shielding it with her hands. Until one evening, the power went out. No distractions, no noise, just her, the candle, and the wind. She sat there frozen, unsure what to do, but the candle kept glowing, bending, flickering, alive. She didn't shield it that night. She just watched. And in that still moment, she finally understood. The candle didn't need protection. It needed space. It needed trust. So do you. You don't need someone to shelter you from every gust. You don't need to shrink every time discomfort knocks. You only need to remember that the flame within you is wiser than the wind around you. If you give it room, it will survive. If you give it breath, it will rise again. You've mistaken the trembling for weakness, but tonight, the trembling is your initiation. The wind is not your enemy, it is your witness. It has seen you doubt, and it has seen you stay. So let it come. Let it stir the edges of your comfort. Let it press gently against what you thought would break you. And then smile. Because you didn't shatter. You didn't vanish. You didn't extinguish. You remained. You are remaining. You will remain. The monk wrote one final sentence on the last page of his candle journal. There is no shame in moving, only in giving up the light. So take that as your mantra tonight. Say it when you start to feel the wind. Say it when your heart races for no reason. Say it when you want to crawl back into silence. I move, but I stay lit. That is your truth now. That is your fire. And no one, not the past, not the fear, not the wind, can take that from you. The room is quieter now. Not because the wind has stopped, but because you've stopped fearing it. There is something holy about the way you've learned to stay. Something sacred in how you no longer flinch when the air shifts. You don't need to hide your flame anymore. You don't need to prove your strength through stillness. You've already proven it through your persistence. And maybe that's what no one ever told you, that resilience doesn't always roar and faith doesn't always stand tall. Sometimes faith flickers, Sometimes it sways. Sometimes it barely survives the night. But it survives. You are not failing. You are flickering, and that is holy. There's a myth that the strongest fire is the one that never moves. But ask any candle, ask any soul that has sat through long winters and longer nights, and they'll tell you, the truest flame dances, and still it gives light. You don't owe the world a flawless flame. You don't need to hold your breath just to keep things looking calm. Let the light tremble. Let it move. Let it respond to what's real. That's what makes it alive. That's what makes you alive. There was a time when you mistook steadiness for worth. When you thought you had to silence your grief and swallow your stumbles just to be taken seriously. But the candle never asked for that. The light never demanded perfection. It only asked, will you keep glowing, even when no one sees you? Will you stay lit, even when the air isn't kind? Will you trust that your purpose is not to impress but to warm? This is your warmth now, not loud, not proud, but true, and still here. There are people in your life who need your glow, not your answers, not your certainty, just the quiet, trembling honesty that you are still walking forward. You don't have to wait for the wind to die before you begin. You don't have to wait until you feel fearless before you speak. You don't have to wait until your hands stop shaking before you offer them in kindness. You are not late. You are not broken. You are burning still. And that is more than enough. The monk who lit the candle every night, he died with the flame beside him. Not because it never shook, but because it never gave up. The final words he wrote were simple. I lived with the trembling, and it lit my way. So tonight, let that be your prayer. Let that be your legacy. You lived with the trembling, and you still lit the way. There's a stillness you will reach, not because the winds stop, but because you have nothing left to fear from them. And in that stillness, your light will grow taller, not because you forced it to, but because you finally trusted it to survive on its own. You've always been stronger than you knew. You've always been softer than you admitted. And now you understand. Those two truths are not opposites. They are partners. They are flame and breeze, living side by side, dancing. So breathe. Let it flicker. Let it hum. Let it move and glow and whisper, I am here. I am still light. I am not failing. You don't have to be certain. You just have to stay. That's enough. And tonight, you've done that. You've sat with the storm. You've let it test you, and you've remained lit. So, close your eyes, not in defeat, but in reverence. You are the candle. You are the light. You are the one who didn't mind the wind. And that is the most beautiful kind of strength there is. There is a patch of earth just beyond the edge of the old monastery wall. No signs, no paths, no plans. And yet, it blooms. Not because someone tilled the soil, not because anyone remembered to water it, not because a gardener stood over it with intention and effort and goals. It bloomed because no one touched it. At first, the monks tried to clear it. They pulled the weeds. They tried to plant structured rows of vegetables. But nothing stayed. So, eventually, they gave up. They left it alone. Seasons passed. Silence grew. And one morning, after a rain that softened the soil just enough, something appeared, a flower, then another. Then a burst of colors so strange and wild, the monks began calling it the Forgotten Garden. But it wasn't forgotten. It was finally left alone long enough to become what it always wanted to be, and maybe so were you. You've spent years trying to heal the right way. You've journaled, meditated, asked the hard questions. You've dug into old wounds, pulled at your own roots, trying to remove everything that felt out of place. But what if healing isn't always effort? What if growth happens not through force but through space? There is a kind of healing that doesn't look like trying. It looks like leaving the soil untouched. It looks like letting the sun and the moon do what they've always done. It looks like trusting that life knows how to rise if we stop stepping on it. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not failing because you haven't figured it all out. You are soil. And soil doesn't need answers. It needs time. It needs silence. It needs permission to be still. There are wildflowers inside you that have never known a hand gentle enough to let them bloom. But they're still there, waiting, not for you to force them open, just for you to stop pulling at the ground. You've thought that stillness meant stagnation, that if you weren't actively growing, you were wasting time. But there is wisdom in the pause. There is a garden blooming in the breath you've been holding too tightly. Let it go. Let it all go just for a while. The guilt, the effort, the pressure to become something sacred on a schedule. You already are. You are sacred because you exist, not because you've improved. You are enough, even while unfinished, especially while unfinished. The monks stopped walking by the garden after a while. They thought they were interrupting something holy. The flowers had no pattern. No one knew their names. Some grew tall, others bent low. Colors no one expected grew beside weeds no one pulled. But it was beautiful, and most of all it was alive. You've been waiting for a perfect version of yourself to arrive. But what if this is already it? What if healing doesn't announce itself with fanfare? What if it tiptoes in quietly on a day when you finally stopped asking if you were healing at all? What if the proof is in the softness, the ease, the breath that no longer hurts to take? You are not lazy for resting. You are not lost for waiting. You are not broken for needing space. You are a garden, and you are growing without a gardener. There is a quiet intelligence in things that grow without direction, a soft wisdom in what rises without being asked to. No one taught the moss how to soften stone. No one showed the breeze how to carry seeds. No one instructed the stars when to return. And yet everything moves. Everything becomes. So must you. But not through pushing, not through control, through allowing. Allow your wounds to breathe. Allow your mind to rest. Allow your body to release the stories it never got to finish telling. So much of what you call stuckness is simply unharvested peace. Peace that only arrives when the gardener goes away. Peace that only appears when no one is watching the soil with expectation. There's a part of you deep and wordless that knows how to bloom without being named. That part is ancient. That part is wise. And it is still intact. You don't have to become your highest self today. You don't have to fix what someone else broke. You don't have to bloom for an audience that never learned how to love wild things. You were not meant to be cultivated. You were meant to be free. Wildflowers don't need praise. They don't need permission. They only need room. And maybe that's all you need too, a little more room. A little more silence between the judgments. A little more light between the plans. A little more time between the pulling and the planting. Because something is already blooming inside you. Not in perfect lines, not in ways that can be monetized or admired on demand, but in real, soft, sacred ways. You might not see it, but you'll feel it. In the way you exhale when no one's looking. In the way your heart no longer races at old triggers. In the way your laughter returns like birdsong after winter. No gardener came to do that. You didn't force that. It happened because you finally let it. There's a monk who once told a visitor, "The bamboo does not strain to grow. It simply grows." And so must you. Not because you've achieved stillness, but because you've stopped fighting it. The garden outside the monastery wall is still growing. Every year, new colors arrive. New plants push through in places where nothing bloomed before. The monks no longer call it forgotten. They now call it blessed, because what once seemed like neglect was actually grace. What once looked like disorder was actually divine design. There is order in your chaos too. There is rhythm in your rest. There is music in your stillness that no one else can hear, but it moves something sacred inside you. Healing doesn't always look like doing. Sometimes healing looks like stopping, like surrendering the shovel, like setting down the self-improvement books, like letting yourself be loved by the sky instead of searching for sunlight. You've done enough. You've dug deep. You've looked within. Now let the soil hold you. Let the earth do what it's always done, transform without needing proof. You were never meant to be the gardener. You were meant to be the field, open, spacious, receptive. You were meant to be the flower. Delicate, yes, but stubborn in your softness, alive in your waiting. You are not lost. You are germinating. The process isn't broken. It's just invisible for now. But it's working. Trust that. Trust what blooms when you leave it alone. Somewhere beneath your exhaustion, something has already begun. Not because you forced it, not because you earned it, but because that's what life does when given a little quiet. It begins again, not with fanfare, not with fireworks, but with a single petal pushing through old soil, a whisper instead of a roar, a breath instead of a breakthrough, a soft bloom where pain once lived. You don't need to be the architect of your rebirth. You don't need to micromanage your emergence. The wildflowers don't file plans. They don't seek approval. They don't schedule their healing on a calendar. They just rise. So let yourself rise. Not perfectly, not according to someone else's blueprint, but in the way you were always meant to, naturally, quietly, unapologetically. You've been so good at doing. Now try not doing. You've mastered the language of fixing. Now try the silence of trusting. You've spent years pulling at yourself, willing the old wounds to disappear, digging so deep you forgot you were never broken, only buried. Now, let the garden take over. Let it surprise you. Let it decide what grows next. Let joy come back without explanation. Let softness return without needing to earn it. Let parts of you bloom that you didn't even plant. There's something holy about healing that you don't control, because that kind of healing proves you were never alone in your becoming. The sun helped, the wind helped, the rain that broke you also softened you, the dark that scared you also nurtured something unseen. And now, it's time. Not to push, not to perfect, but to receive. Receive the quiet miracle of growth without effort. Receive the proof that not everything requires your hand. Receive the beauty of being loved by life just as you are. The monks say the garden outside the walls smells different now, more fragrant, more alive. They don't touch it. They don't try to name it. They just sit beside it and listen, because something in them knows. This is what grace sounds like when it grows wild. And maybe that's your next step too. Not a leap, not a vow, just a sitting beside yourself, in kindness. A willingness to say, I don't need to fix anything today. I don't need to improve this moment. I don't need to become someone else. I only need to breathe, to rest, to be. And in that gentle pause, something blooms. Something soft, something ancient, something holy. You bloom. Not because someone made it happen, not because the timing was perfect, but because space was finally given, and you, like the garden, took it, and used it, and became yourself. This is the end of effort, the end of control, the end of needing to push to feel worthy. This is the beginning of space, the beginning of soft power, the beginning of wild beauty that belongs only to you. So leave the garden alone tonight. Trust what's growing. And when the wind moves the flowers, don't panic. They're not breaking, they're alive. And so are you. Alive, rooted, and finally free to bloom. In the middle of a shallow mountain stream, there is a single stone. It doesn't move. It doesn't resist. It simply remains. The water rushes past it, again and again, year after year. Cold currents, autumn leaves, fallen branches, and still the stone stays. Not hardened, not jagged, but smooth. Worn by time, not broken by it. It has felt the pressure of the current. It has been struck by ice and flood. It has known the weight of seasons and let them all pass. It never clenched. It never held a grudge against the water that shaped it. And maybe that's what forgiveness really looks like. Not forgetting, not erasing, but allowing the pain to pass through without turning you sharp. You were hurt, yes. Let's not deny that. Let's not rush to silence it. But you don't have to become the shape of that hurt. You don't have to calcify around the memory. You don't have to grip it until it becomes your story. You can remain, you can stay, and you can let the stream move through you without needing to dam the water or change its direction. There is strength in stillness. There is power in non-retaliation. And there is profound wisdom in choosing softness after being struck. The stone doesn't resist the stream, and because of that it remains untouched in the truest way. Still present, still grounded, but no longer carrying the debris. Maybe you've been carrying too much. Maybe the past has settled into you like silt in a riverbed. Memories you didn't ask for. Words that should never have been spoken. Things that happened when you were too young to name them. You didn't invite them, but they came, and they stayed. And now you've begun to believe they are you. That what touched you became you. That the pain is yours to hold forever. But the truth is simpler than that. You are not what passed through you. You are what stayed steady beneath it. You are the rock, not the current. And rocks do not hate the river. They let it run. They let it change them not by choice, but by exposure. And eventually, the sharp edges become smooth, not because the rock tried to heal, but because it stopped resisting what had already happened. This is not surrender to pain. This is not passive acceptance. This is something higher. This is what happens when you realize that bitterness is a heavier burden than the wound ever was. So let the water go. Let the memory flow. Let the pain move past you, through you, around you, but not into you. You've already bled for it. Don't let it name you too. The monks tell of a boulder deep in the valley that once split in two after a long winter. When spring came, water rushed through the crack and wore down the jagged edge. Years later, you could no longer see the break, only a soft curve where violence once lived. Time didn't erase the story, but it rewrote its shape. So can you. You don't need revenge. You don't need them to say sorry. You don't even need them to understand. You only need the stillness to decide, I will not carry this anymore. Let that be your healing. Let that be your quiet refusal, not to strike back, not to stay angry, but to remain soft in a world that taught you to clench. You are still here. That is already a miracle. Now, let the water pass. Let the current move. Let your silence be what saves you. There's a quiet moment when the water slows near twilight and the rock is bathed in gold. Nothing speaks, nothing moves, and yet something inside you softens because you realize you don't need the world to acknowledge your pain for your peace to be real. You've waited a long time for justice, for recognition, for someone to say, you didn't deserve that. And maybe no one ever did, but you did not wait in vain. Because here you are, still unbroken, still breathing, and more importantly, still kind. What greater justice is there than becoming softer instead of bitter, gentler instead of cold, lighter instead of heavy with blame? You were shaped by what tried to harm you but not destroyed by it. That is the quiet triumph. That is what no one can take from you. There is no glory in bitterness. There is no prize for holding grudges. There is only more weight. And haven't you carried enough? The rock doesn't remember which stick hit it hardest. It doesn't catalogue every branch that bumped against it. It simply becomes smoother with each passing tide, and still it remains. You too can remain, not unchanged, but untouched in the places that matter most. Let that be your forgiveness. Not for them, but for you. Not because they earned it, but because you no longer need to carry them in your chest. Your softness is your release. Your stillness is your boundary. Your silence is your strength. You are not giving up when you let go. You are stepping out of the river with peace in your pocket and lightness in your spine. You are walking forward without dragging the current behind you. The monks tell of a visitor who once asked, "How can you forgive someone who never asked to be forgiven?" And the old monk replied, "Because I don't want to spend the rest of my life talking to ghosts." That's what bitterness does. It invites ghosts to dinner. It feeds memories you no longer owe attention to. It ties you to a wound that has long since stopped bleeding. But forgiveness is the quiet refusal to keep living in yesterday. It is not weakness. It is not forgetting. It is simply this: I choose not to become what hurt me. That is the rock. That is you. You can still love without trusting again. You can still remember without reopening the wound. You can still honor your story without being chained to it. Let the river carry the rest. Let it take what you no longer need to explain. Let it rinse your memory until only the lesson remains. You've done enough. You've held the weight long enough. You've replayed the scene too many nights. Now let the scene dissolve. Let the water have it. Let stillness keep you. And when the next wave comes, as it always does, you will not panic. You will not brace. You will smile, because you are no longer afraid of being struck. You are no longer shaped by what tries to disturb you. You are the rock. You are the silence. You are the one who held no grudge and still remained. At the edge of the quiet field, there is a tree with a bare upper branch. No nest, no flutter, just a single feather caught in the bark, gently moving with the breeze. If you didn't know better, you'd think it meant nothing. But that branch once held life. It once sheltered a bird who sang every morning before the sun rose. And now she's gone. Not because the tree failed her, not because the branch broke, but because that's what birds do. They leave. And trees, if they are wise, do not beg them to stay. They simply hold what they can for as long as it's needed, and then they open their arms to the sky. You've tried so hard to hold on to what was, to who they were, to the version of yourself that existed when they still needed you. But something sacred happens when you stop gripping. The branch doesn't mourn its emptiness. It honors its offering. It says, I was strong enough to shelter, and I am strong enough to release. That is love, not possession, not control. Not waiting at the edge of your own becoming for someone to return. Love is holding, and then letting go with the same tenderness. There was a time when your heart sang like that bird, when their presence lit up your days like morning sun. You built a nest inside your chest for them. You softened your strength so they could rest. But now they are gone. Maybe they left gently. Maybe they left cruelly. Maybe they didn't say goodbye at all. But they are no longer yours to carry, no longer yours to shelter. And that's not abandonment. That's nature. Even the closest bonds in the wild end. Not in anger, not in betrayal, but in completion. The bird does not apologize for flying, and the tree does not collapse from grief. So why should you? You are still rooted. You are still here. And in your stillness, there is proof. You were the safe place. You were the branch. You were the home. That matters even after they've gone. We are taught to measure love by what stays, But sometimes, the deepest love is found in what we allow to leave, not because we didn't care, but because we cared enough not to cage. There is no shame in being the one who stayed. No shame in watching something beautiful take flight and choosing not to chase it. This is what release looks like. Not resignation, not indifference, but reverence. A soft bow to what was. A quiet thank you for the season shared. A deep breath that says, I was part of their story, and they were part of mine. The monks speak of a great cedar whose branches have held hundreds of nests over the decades. Some birds return. Most don't. But the tree never closes, never stops offering shelter, never grows bitter from the leaving, because it knows the purpose was never to keep, only to support. So too, with you. You were never asked to keep what came to grow, only to be the soil it grew from, only to be the branch it rested on before it learned to rise. And now it's time, not to forget, not to erase, but to unclench, to let your hands fall open, to let the memory rise like breath, to let the feather drift and not reach for it. Somewhere inside you, a part still waits for them to come back, for the story to finish differently, for some sign that your holding wasn't in vain. But love is not a contract. It's not a ledger to be balanced. It's a gift, offered in real time, given without demand. And when you understand that, you no longer ask the wind to return what it carried away. You simply bow to it. You simply say, thank you for letting me feel something real. The tree doesn't ask for closure. It doesn't send messages to the sky. It just keeps growing. Each year, rings form inside its trunk, marks of time and change, and life lived fully. Some rings were shaped by spring, some by drought, some by the quiet ache of absence, but all of them belong. And maybe your heart is just like that, still whole, still standing, with seasons etched in silence around its center. The one who left did not take your worth. The empty branch is not a failure. It is an altar, a sacred place where love once lived, and that is enough. You've spent too long tying your identity to what stayed, to who stayed. But now, maybe it's time to measure yourself by what you had the courage to release. You can love what left. You can remember them softly. You can smile when the wind carries a sound that reminds you and still not grip again. You are not a cage. You are not a waiting room. You are a field. Open, expansive, rooted. There is no need to beg life for the return of something that already gave you its gift. There is no need to wonder if you were enough. You were. You were the branch. You were the home. And now you are the one who lets go without bitterness, the one who releases with grace, the one who trusts that if love wants to return, it will. And if it doesn't, then it wasn't meant to stay for more than that season. Even the tree doesn't know which birds will come. It only knows how to remain. So, remain. Soft, steady, untwisted by longing, unbent by grief. Let the feather stay on the bark. Let the wind have its way. Let your chest open to the sky again, not for their return, but for your own freedom. This is how you bloom again. Not by forgetting, but by loosening the story's grip, by saying, I held them well, and now I let them fly. There is a silence that comes after the flight. Not hollow, not lonely, but full. Full of what was given, full of what was shared, full of what no longer needs to be held. This is not the silence of abandonment, it is the silence of return to yourself. Because loving someone does not mean losing your ground. Sheltering someone does not mean shrinking to fit their shape. You were the branch, and now you are the sky. Let yourself expand again. Let yourself breathe without holding. Let yourself exist without waiting for the sound of wings. You are not broken because they left. You are opened, Not torn, but widened. Not emptied, but made ready for something new to arrive. And maybe it won't be a bird this time. Maybe it won't sing. Maybe it won't need shelter. But you will still offer it. Not because you're desperate, not because you're trying to be chosen, but because that's who you are. You shelter, you open, you let life come and go through you without needing to hold it still. There is a strength in that, a quiet, holy strength that most will never understand. Because the world teaches us to grip, to chase, to anchor, to possess. But love, real love, flows like wind, like wings, like breath that cannot be trapped and doesn't want to be. You cannot become the sky if you keep clinging to what left. The monks say there is a kind of wisdom that comes only to those who do not close. And tonight you are wise. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you finally stopped holding. The feather will stay for a little while longer, tucked into the bark. A memory, not a chain, and one day the wind will lift it too, and you won't reach. You'll just watch, and nod, and smile, because something sacred passed through you, and was never meant to stay forever. And that's okay. The tree does not become less when the nest is empty. It becomes more wider, quieter, truer. So do you. You are still love. Even without the one you held, you are still home. Even when no one is returning, you are still the branch, still strong, still soft, still open to the sky. Somewhere in the desert, a trail of footsteps leads nowhere. Not because the traveler was lost, but because the wind was kind. One by one, the prints soften, edges blur, sand moves. And just like that, the past disappears. No monument, no marker, no map, just movement. You walked, you kept going, and the path behind you let go. This is not a tragedy. This is grace. There is a quiet mercy in not having to carry every step. There is a sacred freedom in not being followed by everything you've been. But you've spent years trying to look back, trying to hold the line between who you were and who you've become, measuring progress by how visible your old footprints still are. They're fading now, and maybe that scares you, because who are you if not the one who remembers everything? Who are you if not the sum of every mistake, every loss, every lesson? You are this, the one who kept walking, not perfectly, not without pain, but forward. And in that movement, something ancient understood what the mind could not. That healing doesn't always look like carrying. Sometimes it looks like forgetting. Not forgetting the meaning, but forgetting the need to revisit it. You no longer owe your pain an altar. You no longer need to pause and kneel at every old version of yourself. The desert has erased it. The wind has covered it. And still, you are here. Still walking, still whole, still becoming. The monks speak of a traveler who once walked the entire outer ring of the monastery's stone garden, leaving footprints in the dust as he went. He made one full circle, then another, then a third. Each time, the footprints faded a little more. By the seventh lap, the path behind him was smooth again, as if no one had ever walked there. He bowed and said, "This is how it should be. No legacy, no trail, no burden left behind to follow him. Just the presence of each step and the release that came after. You've been taught to keep records, to hold your past like scripture, to carry every version of yourself like a lineage that can't be broken. But what if it can? What if the holiest thing you can do is let the wind take what no longer needs a name? You don't need to be remembered by your wounds. You don't need to be defined by your story. You are not the event. You are the witness. You are not the pain. You are the one who passed through it and kept going. You've walked through more than most people know, carried weight in silence, fell without anyone seeing, rose without anyone clapping. You've earned the right to vanish from your past, You've earned the right to stop explaining how far you've come. Let it dissolve. Let it vanish like footprints in wind-blown sand. You are not erasing your story. You're allowing it to rest, to stop following you like a shadow asking to be retold. The wind remembers you, the sand remembers you, but you are allowed to forget, not out of denial, but out of peace. You spent years retracing your steps, hoping to make sense of it all, hoping that if you looked back just one more time, the pattern would emerge, the meaning would reveal itself, the pain would justify its presence. But some paths are not meant to be mapped. Some journeys are not meant to be understood in reverse. And the farther you walk, the more you realize. You don't need the old story to bless your new becoming. You don't need the dust to form a sentence in order to know that it mattered. You are not what happened. You are what kept moving. You are not the line of footprints. You are the one who now walks without looking down. Let the wind take it. Let the past dissolve naturally, like steam rising from tea left too long in the sun. This is not forgetting out of fear. This is not running from what you endured. This is reverence. Reverence for the way the soul knows when to turn inward. Reverence for the moment when silence becomes the best historian. You don't need to keep retelling it to make it real. You lived it. You already honored it by surviving. Now honor yourself by leaving it. Let it vanish. Let it soften. Let it fall back into the sand like a story the earth has already absorbed. The monks say the wind is the final prayer, the last chant, the blessing that does not speak but clears. And tonight the wind is rising, not to punish, not to erase, but to free. You've carried your past like a lantern, always looking into it for light. But now you are the fire. Now you glow from within. Now you lead the way, not for them, not for the story, but for yourself. And the trail behind you? It doesn't need to stay. It doesn't need to guide anyone. Because the journey was never for anyone else to follow. It was for you, and you are here now. Present, breathing, free. What you left behind does not need to follow. Not the memory, not the shape of your suffering, not the old identity that kept introducing itself as you. You are not her anymore. You are not him anymore. You are not that moment anymore. You are this breath, this step, this silence. There is nothing back there for you. Let the wind take your name, if it must. Let it take the apologies you never received. Let it take the ache that still tried to trail you. And in its place, let there be space, not a void, but peace, not silence as punishment, but silence as a gift. There comes a moment on every path when you stop needing to know where it started. You no longer ask, "How did I get here?" You simply say, "I'm here." And that becomes enough. Not because you've lost your memory, but because you've outgrown your need to walk backward. You are no longer made of what you passed through. You are made of the fact that you passed. You endured. You kept breathing when it would have been easier to disappear. And now you are allowed to. Disappear, not in sorrow, but in freedom. Disappear from the version of you that needed the pain to feel real. Disappear from the story that kept replaying in your ribcage, like it still had something to prove. It doesn't. You don't. The proof is your presence. The evidence is your breath. The miracle is that you can stand in the sand, watch the wind erase what you thought you'd need forever, and feel no panic, just peace. This is what it means to release, not to deny the past, not to burn it, but to let it become background, to let it fade like an old echo you no longer need to respond to. You don't owe your history anything more. Not another explanation, not another retelling, not another moment of identity wrapped around who you were. You are not your history. You are this walk, this desert, this sky that stretches wide with nothing to chase. You are a presence, not a record. You are a becoming, not a memory. And now you walk differently. Not because the weight is gone, but because the need to carry it is. The wind has taught you, let what must disappear, disappear. Let what needs no monument dissolve. And trust that nothing true is ever lost, only transformed. Your pain is not gone, but it is no longer in charge. Your past is not erased, but it no longer defines your face in the mirror. Now, you belong to what's ahead, to the road that makes no promises, to the air that no longer calls you by your old name. Walk forward, even if the map fades, even if no one understands the shape you've become, because the truth is this: you are free, not because you escaped, but because you released. The desert behind you is silent now. The footsteps have vanished. And so has the version of you who thought she had to keep looking back just to feel whole. Now you walk forward, light as sand, clear as breath, and holy as silence. There is nothing to prove. There is nothing to chase. What you've left behind does not need to follow. And you no longer need to explain why you left. You are the wind now. You are the traveler and the erasure. You are the one who walked and never looked back. Near the edge of the clearing, a bamboo ladder leans against a tree. It reaches upward but leads nowhere. No roof, no platform, no destination. Just air, just branches, just sky. Someone once placed it there, believing it would lead them higher, believing that elevation was the same as transformation. But nothing waits at the top, and still the ladder remains, not as failure, not as mockery, but as reminder. Not everything vertical is meant to be climbed. You've spent your whole life ascending, trying, striving, chasing the next level of healing, of growth, of arrival. You've counted your steps, measured your worth by how far above the ground you could get, and now you've reached a pause. Not because you've fallen, but because the truth is finally clear. This ladder was never for rising. It was for returning. Returning to yourself, to the soft center, to the root beneath the effort. You were never meant to climb tonight, only to look inward and find the temple that never required a view. The monks say the tallest truths sit beneath the surface, not above the trees, not above the noise. But beneath your ribs, beneath the search, there is no rooftop to your soul. There is no summit to your healing. Only layers of softness you have not yet allowed yourself to sit with. This is the night you stop climbing. This is the moment you stop performing altitude for a world that only claps when you rise. You are not here to rise. You are here to return. Return to the breath. Return to the silence. Return to the wisdom that was never in the steps but in the stillness between them. You've mistaken motion for meaning, progress for peace, climbing for becoming. But sometimes the most sacred movement is no movement at all. Just sitting, just breathing, just knowing that your worth is not measured in how high you can reach, but in how deep you can listen. The ladder still stands, but no one is on it. Because those who came here to ascend eventually learned there's nowhere to go. There's only something to feel, and that feeling, that quiet truth, has always lived below. Let it rise now, not in triumph, but in stillness. Let the sky wait, let the tree stand, let the ladder lean and remain unused. Tonight, you go inward, not upward, not because you're weak, but because you're finally wise enough to know the difference. You were taught that enlightenment is an ascent, that wisdom sits at the top of something, that the divine waits in the clouds, that your pain must be transcended, climbed out of, escaped. But tonight, the truth is softer, quieter, and entirely beneath your feet. There is no mountain to scale, only a floor to kneel on. And kneeling not in defeat, but in reverence is where the soul begins to speak. You don't need elevation to see clearly. You need emptiness, not the emptiness of lack, but the kind that comes when you finally stop trying to be impressive. That's where the sacred begins. When you give up the show, when you sit at the base of the tree and let your breath fall back into rhythm. You've climbed so long, achievement after achievement, lesson after lesson, milestone after milestone. But have you rested? Have you stopped to ask whether the top even exists? What if the ladder was placed there not as a tool to rise, but as a mirror, to show you how much of your striving was just a more elegant form of self-avoidance? How much of your becoming was really just running in a socially acceptable direction? You don't have to keep going. You don't have to reach the next level. You don't have to prove that you've outgrown your shadows. Spiritual height is not in the air. It's in the marrow, in the stillness, in the moment you finally realize you are already where you're supposed to be. Even now, especially now, when you've stopped moving, when you're just breathing. This is the temple, not a summit, not a secret, not a prize. Just this, the silence within you that no one else can name. The monks once said, "The ladder is not to climb, it is to lean against while you finally sit down." So lean, not for leverage, but for letting go. Let go of the myth that you must improve every day. Let go of the voice that says you haven't arrived. Let go of the fear that if you stop climbing, you'll disappear. You will not vanish. You will only return to the part of you that never moved, the part that never needed height to be holy. You were not asked to ascend tonight. You were invited to descend into honesty, into breath, into stillness so unshakable it cannot be measured by height, only by presence. So be here, on the ground, with the bamboo ladder at your side and no need to climb it. You are not missing anything. You are not behind. You are not small. You are just not elsewhere. And that is the holiest place you could be. You've stood at the bottom of many ladders, some built from ambition, some from guilt, some handed to you by people who said, "Climb this, and then you'll be enough." And you believed them. You climbed. You rose. You looked down and saw others still searching. You looked up and saw nothing but more steps. But what they never told you was this: there is no end, no highest rung, no moment when the ladder disappears and you suddenly become whole. Wholeness doesn't live at the top. It lives in the stillness you were too busy to feel. It lives in the breath you held while you chased your worth. It lives in the silence after striving stops. The bamboo ladder is not broken. It's just misunderstood. It was never meant to lead you to heaven. It was meant to lead you inward by failing to lead you anywhere else. That is the secret teaching. That is the sacred invitation. To stop trying to transcend and instead become present. To stop chasing light above and feel the warmth already glowing inside. Even the tree that holds the ladder does not rise in a straight line. It curves. It thickens at the root. It expands in silence, not in speed. You are that tree, still growing, still deepening, still enough. Let the ladder stay where it is. Let it be a symbol, not a solution. It's okay if others keep climbing. It's okay if they don't understand your pause. They will think you've given up. But you haven't. You've come home, to the earth, to the breath, to the place beneath words where truth waits with open arms. You were never meant to ascend tonight, just to return inward. And in that return, something ancient welcomes you. Something sacred breathes with you. Something whole whispers, "You are here, and here is enough." In a quiet room, a single flame holds its place. Not large, not loud, but steady. It doesn't flicker with need. It doesn't flare to be seen. It simply glows on its own terms. And beside it, a moth rests. Not in flight, not in chaos, just watching. Close enough to feel the warmth, far enough not to be consumed. This is not the story we were told. We were taught that love must chase, that light must attract, that longing is a sign of life. But tonight, the flame does not chase. It does not move. It does not beg the moth to come closer or mourn the distance. It remains centered, certain, whole. You've spent too long burning for things that never held you, too long reaching toward people who only hovered, too long confusing desire with worth. But now you are learning something different. That not everything that comes near deserves to be drawn in. That you don't have to burn just because something flutters close. The monks tell of a sacred fire that once stood in the center of the temple courtyard. It was not for ceremony, not for warmth, not for cooking. It simply burned day and night to remind the monks, presence is not pursuit. That fire never grew large, never reached, never responded. It stayed. And in staying, it revealed something most forget, that peace glows. It does not chase. And you have chased too long. Chased love, chased closure, chased recognition that never arrived. You flared up for those who only circled. You exhausted yourself trying to prove you were worthy of landing. But now the flame in you is different. It is quieter, cleaner, no longer performing brightness to earn devotion. This flame is not desperate, it is divine. And it does not move just because something fragile wants its heat. Let the moth stay where it is. Let it choose its distance. Let it remain a visitor, not a reason to change your shape. You are not the answer to someone else's hesitation. You are not the fire built for someone else's longing. You are your own glow. And that is enough. It's taken you years to stop bending, to stop burning up for every need that brushed against your skin, to stop mistaking presence for permission. But now you know. The flame that doesn't move is not cold. It is wise. It knows that some things are not meant to be pulled in. They are meant to pass by, to witness, to leave untouched. And still, you shine. You shine not because someone sees you, not because someone stays, but because shining is what you do whether watched or not. You've outgrown the need to be chosen. You've outlived the ache of being ignored, because now you understand. Your glow was never about them. It was about your own center, your own stillness, your own unshaken knowing that you are enough even when no one lands. Let what circles you stay in flight. You are not here to catch. You are not here to close. You are here to radiate without reaching. This is not loneliness. This is sovereignty. The difference? Loneliness waits. Sovereignty rests. Loneliness dims itself in hope. Sovereignty burns regardless. There will always be moths, people, moments, opportunities, emotions that hover near your heat but are not willing to meet you in stillness. Let them come close. Let them stay at the edge. Let them go. You do not have to dim just because they do not draw near. You do not have to burn hotter just to be noticed. True peace does not chase love or longing. It holds itself with grace without demand. The monks say the brightest flame is the one that knows it cannot be held, that its job is not to gather but to remain. And now you remain, not hardened, not cold, but clear. There is a softness in you now that no longer asks for completion, a glow that no longer rises for performance. Let it stay that way. Let your fire become your home, not your bait. Because those who belong will not fear the stillness. They will not need your burning to feel whole. They will not hover and hesitate. They will sit beside your fire and not ask it to move. Until then, keep glowing. Keep choosing yourself. Keep letting what flutters find its own way. And if it never lands, so be it. You are already whole, already warm, already light. The flame that doesn't move is not lacking. It is free, somewhere in your past, you learned to confuse love with motion, to believe that if someone circled you, you had to ignite for them, to open, to glow brighter, to reach toward the wings, even if it meant losing yourself. But that version of you has burned enough. You've given heat to hands that never stayed. You've lit dark rooms for those who only stayed until they could see again. You've offered warmth without asking if you, too, deserved to be held. No more. Tonight, you understand a new kind of love, one that does not need to prove itself through proximity, one that does not beg or chase or consume. The moth does not need to touch the flame to feel it, and you do not need to be touched to know you are radiant. The bamboo walls around the monastery flicker softly. The candle at the center holds still. A moth passes, then another. Some stay, some vanish. The flame does not respond. And in that stillness, there is wisdom older than language. This is the life of the light bringer, not one of reaching, but of remaining. Let this be your vow, to remain, to glow, to stay in your own warmth, whether someone recognizes it or not. To know that your glow is not a request, but a truth. That your radiance is not proof of longing, but a quiet, sovereign existence. Let what circles you stay in flight. Let desire pass like clouds. Let connection be chosen, not chased, because love that is real will not hover at the edge of your light. It will come and sit beside you, without fear, without flinching, without expecting you to burn for it. And if it never comes, you are still flame, you are still sacred, you are still enough. The moth leaves, the flame remains. And in that moment, you finally understand, not every connection is meant to land, not every visitor is meant to stay, not every pull deserves a response. Some things are meant to witness your glow and move on, and that's not abandonment, that's alignment. Let it go, let it pass, let the flame be still, because you, in your stillness, in your quiet, in your centered radiance, are already complete. And those who belong to your fire will never ask you to move. In the center of the monastery garden, there is a stone well. No rope, no bucket, no ritual. Just still water, held in silence, reflecting the moon. It does not ripple, it does not reach, it does not explain. It simply reveals everything above, everything within, without effort. The monks say the water was never meant to be touched, only seen, only witnessed, only honored for what it showed when nothing disturbed it. And perhaps that's what you've forgotten, that truth is not always found in movement, that some knowing arrives only when everything else becomes still. You've been chasing answers, turning over every stone in your memory, digging through every word someone said, looking for signs, for meanings, for confirmation. But the more you stirred, the less you could see. The reflection broke, the image scattered, and all you found was noise. Because answers are not loud, they are not urgent. They are not impressed by panic. They wait. At the bottom of your silence, in the center of your stillness, unmoved. You don't need to analyze your pain again tonight. You don't need to relive the moment to understand it. You don't need to ask one more question to feel at peace. You only need to stop stirring the surface. Let the water settle. Let your thoughts settle. Let your breath settle. The reflection will return when the search ends. There is a part of you that already knows, a part that doesn't speak in sentences, a part that doesn't calculate. It just knows, like the moon knows how to rise, without asking permission. But you've drowned that voice beneath waves of why. Why did they leave? Why did I fall? Why hasn't it healed? These are not bad questions, but they are loud, and truth is quiet. There's a monk who once sat beside the well for 30 days, not to drink, not to pray, but to watch. Each day he said less. Each day he moved slower. Each day the water grew clearer. On the 30th day, He saw the full moon perfect, silent, whole, and whispered, "It was always there. I just kept shaking the water." You've been shaking your own surface, trying to hurry the healing, trying to fix what needed space, not solving. But now, you can stop. Not because the answers don't matter, but because you are finally ready to receive them through quiet, not through control. The well is not empty. It is deep. It is whole. It is waiting. And so are you. You don't need one more breakthrough. You need to breathe. You need to sit beside yourself the way the monk sat beside the water without agenda. Let the surface become still. Let your heart reflect, not what you want to see, but what is already here. Stillness does not offer explanation, only understanding. And tonight, that is more than enough. You've been conditioned to equate insight with effort, to believe that truth must be earned, that peace must be pursued, that clarity must be decoded through layers of logic. But the water teaches otherwise. It reveals not by working, but by waiting, not by explaining, but by holding. And perhaps the most radical act of wisdom is to stop trying, to stop squeezing the past for closure, to stop prying the future open before it's ready, to stop demanding that life explain itself in your preferred language. There is no teacher greater than stillness, no guide more honest than reflection. And you are the surface. You are the water. When left alone, you show everything. You show the stars, the sky, the breath, the truth that was always beneath the noise. But when shaken even by your own hand, you distort. You lose sight of what was already clear. So tonight, put the questions down, just for now. Not forever, but long enough for the dust to settle. You're not surrendering your curiosity. You're surrendering your grip. You're not turning away from truth. You're turning away from the noise that drowned it. The monks say the well was never meant to give answers. It was meant to reveal your readiness. When you're ready, you stop talking. You stop reaching. You sit. And the moon comes on its own. There are things you will never understand through thought, only through presence, only through the quiet decision to no longer disturb the water, just to feel in control. The mind can be a storm, but your spirit is not interested in storms. It seeks reflection, recognition, return. Return to the place beneath your thinking. Return to the breath that never asked why. Return to the still well within you that has never once needed to prove its depth. You have not failed because you don't have the answer. You are not lost because the reason hasn't arrived. You are simply in the middle of a clearing, where the well sits, and the moon is rising. And the only thing left to do is nothing. Let the ripples fade. Let the sky appear. Let your soul recognize itself not through words, but through stillness. That's where the truth lives. Not in the question, but in the space where the question dissolves. And if you sit long enough, without needing, without naming, you'll find it was always there, the moon, the answer, the peace, not arriving, just waiting for you to stop shaking the surface. Some truths are not meant to be spoken. They are meant to be felt wordless, weightless, like moonlight on still water. You cannot carry them in a sentence. You carry them in presence, in the way your breath softens, in the way your shoulders stop searching, in the way your eyes close, not in defeat, but in reverence. This is that kind of truth. It doesn't arrive when called. It arrives when the calling ends. The monk who tended the well never wrote anything down. He said, "Those who ask for the answer are not ready to receive it. Those who stop asking already know. And now you are beginning to know, not by force, not by understanding, but by being still long enough to see what was always here. Peace, clarity, not because you earned them, but because you stopped interrupting them. You've chased wisdom like a flame, but this isn't fire. This is reflection. It gives off no heat, only awareness. And awareness does not need to prove itself. It only needs to be met. You're not here to decode yourself like a puzzle. You're here to witness yourself like a moon rising in a still sky. Let your stillness speak now, not to others, but to yourself. You have no one left to convince, not even you. Because beneath all your searching, you were already whole. You just couldn't see it through the ripple. Let the water hold you now. Let the silence rise like steam. Let the need to explain finally bow to the truth of being. The monks say that wells are sacred not because of what they contain, but because of what they reflect when left undisturbed. So let yourself be sacred tonight. Not by doing, not by achieving, but by reflecting. And in that reflection, you'll see what was never gone, only hidden, only waiting, only quiet. Stillness does not explain. Stillness does not answer your questions aloud. Stillness does something braver. It dissolves the question altogether, and in its place something deeper appears. Not certainty, not clarity you can put into words, but knowing, pure, undisturbed, enough. You do not need to stir again. You do not need to return to the surface. Let the well remain calm. Let your heart remain open. Let the moon reflect across what no longer needs to be fixed. You are not a mystery to be solved. You are a stillness to be remembered. And tonight, you remembered. Not through effort, but through stillness. Not through thought, but through presence. Not through asking, but through being quiet enough to hear the answer that never needed to speak. It was always this: you are whole, you are ready, you are here. And the well is clear again. There is a moment so small you might miss it when something inside you softens and you exhale without meaning to. Not a sigh, not a release of words, just breath, leaving. And as it rises in the cold night air, you see it for what it is, a burden you didn't know you carried. That's the breath we're speaking of, the one that stayed trapped in your ribs while you kept moving, while you kept smiling, while you kept surviving without ever pausing to ask, what am I holding? There's a tension that builds slowly over time. It wraps itself around the body like thread. It tightens around the voice, the chest, the belly, and you don't notice until you finally let go. You've lived years on half a breath. Your body forgot how to open. Your spirit forgot how to trust gravity. But tonight, something unknots. Not because you forced it, but because you finally noticed it was there. That's the beginning of release. Not effort, but awareness. Tension hides in silence, but awareness brings breath. And breath, when honored, brings you back to yourself. The monks say that most people never breathe the full length of their soul. They inhale enough to survive, but never enough to feel. And when we stop feeling, we start carrying weights, wounds, stories, all tucked beneath the breath we never finished. But tonight, you finish it. You exhale not out of exhaustion, but out of awakening. You realize now you've carried too much, without knowing, without needing to, and the breath so quiet, so simple becomes your permission to release. No speeches, no rituals, just this. The air leaving, and with it, everything that was never yours to hold. There's a story of a traveler who walked for days with a heavy pack, only to discover it was filled with stones he never chose. Someone else's shame, someone else's urgency, a weight passed down through generations in silence. When he opened the bag and saw what he carried, he didn't cry, he didn't shout, he just exhaled. And the sound of that breath was freedom. So too with you. You don't need to understand everything tonight. You don't need to name every weight. You only need to breathe again, fully, slowly, willingly, and let the cold air rise with what is leaving. What leaves you now was never yours to carry. There is no ceremony for this kind of release, no celebration, No spotlight, only stillness, only a body that finally loosens, only a quiet exhale in the dark, as the night air meets something old and gently takes it away. You didn't realize how long your shoulders had been lifted, how often your stomach braced for impact, how tightly your jaw held stories you were never allowed to finish. Until now, until this breath, the one that didn't ask permission, the one that didn't wait for answers, the one that simply left. Not because you're healed, not because everything is fixed, but because you finally gave yourself permission to stop gripping so tightly. This is what healing looks like sometimes. Not a breakthrough, but a soft surrender. Not a declaration, but a breath. You've been told to push through, to hold it together, to stay strong, but no one taught you the sacredness of softening, the holiness of collapse, the miracle of letting go without knowing what's on the other side. The monks say the deepest breath is not the one that fills you, it's the one that empties you, the one that clears space, the one that says, I'm done holding what isn't mine. Let that be this breath, not dramatic, not performative, just real, just quiet, just yours, because the body remembers what the mind tries to bury. It stores the unsaid, it tucks away the unfinished, it keeps grief in the lungs, fear in the gut, self-blame in the chest. But breath is the key. Not deep breath as control, but honest breath. Breath that doesn't try to fix. Breath that simply arrives, notices, and leaves. You're not here to solve your pain tonight. You're here to stop feeding it breath you didn't know you were giving. You're here to reclaim your rhythm, to allow your chest to rise not with urgency, but with quiet reverence for what is leaving. And what's leaving is old, heavy, not even yours, inherited, absorbed, performed. Let it go now, not because it's finished with you, but because you are finished with it. This is the holy act, not to fight, but to release, not to conquer, but to unclench, not to name every tension, but to exhale and trust that what rises with that breath was ready to leave. Watch it drift, watch it rise like mist and vanish. That was never you, that was never yours, and now it's gone. And in its place, silence, softness, and space, so you can finally breathe. The cold night air holds your breath like a prayer. No words, just release. You don't need to ask for anything now. You've already done the hardest part you stopped holding. And as the silence deepens, you realize there is more space inside you than you ever knew. Not emptiness, but room. Room for warmth to return. Room for joy to rise without guilt. Room for softness, the kind that doesn't apologize for needing nothing to prove. You spent years living in tight spaces, inside expectations, inside memories, inside patterns that shrunk your lungs and narrowed your voice. But now you are expanding, not by effort, but by surrender, by remembering that breath is not a task. It's a return to the body, to the moment, to the truth that you are already enough when you simply exist. You are not what you carried. You are what remains when the carrying stops. The monks say that all true release begins in the ribs, not in the mind, not in the muscles, but in that invisible place where life has been waiting to move freely again, and you are finally letting it move. With each exhale, a part of you unhooks from the past, from the roles, from the pressure, from the illusion that holding it all made you holy. What makes you holy is not your strength, but your willingness to let go. And what you're letting go now isn't just pain. It's posture, it's performance. It's the breath you never took because you thought peace had to be earned. It doesn't. Peace is what fills the space after the weight has left. And now that it has, you are lighter. You are looser. You are alive in a new way. Not bigger, just more true, more yours. So breathe. Fully, without waiting, without checking if it's okay. Breathe like someone who knows the night is listening, not to your words, but to your willingness to stop holding. Let it hear that. Let the stars watch your chest rise and fall with nothing to prove, because now you know you've carried too much. But you don't have to anymore. And what leaves you now was never yours to carry. But some of it stayed so long, it began to speak in your voice. It borrowed your posture, wore your name, and called itself identity. So it's no surprise that letting it go feels unfamiliar, feels like absence, feels like silence louder than thought. But this is not emptiness. It's your original shape returning. The breath is just the first piece, the invitation, the threshold. Now, deeper things will begin to unhook. Beliefs inherited like family heirlooms, but lined with shame. Tensions tucked into muscle, rehearsed so often they became background noise. Even your smile might shift, less fixed, less polite, more real. Because when the breath is free, so is the face. And when the body is no longer bracing, the soul begins to arrive again. You'll begin noticing the smallest things, the sound of the wind in your lungs, the weightlessness of not needing to answer every thought, the way your hands rest instead of fold. This is the breath you didn't know you held, but also the life you didn't know you missed. One that isn't managed, or staged, or constantly checked for worth. Just life, as it is, as you are. No more holding your breath in rooms that can't hold you. No more shrinking to be safe. No more living inside someone else's silence. Let it all rise and fall like the exhale you keep returning to. Let your body tell the truth now. It is done carrying. And in this final breath of the night, let something ancient fall away. The need to be strong, the need to be certain, the need to be okay. Let yourself just be raw, releasing, real. Let the cold night air take one last offering from your lungs. Let it lift what was never meant to be yours. Let it leave you softer, wider, and more whole than you've ever felt while trying to hold it all. Because now you know something sacred. What leaves you now was never yours to carry. And what stays, finally has space to breathe. In the corner of the wooden table, resting on a worn, lacquered tray, sits a cup of tea, still steaming, still full, still untouched. No one drank it. No one spilled it. No one needed it. And yet it was offered, prepared with care, poured with warmth. Then, simply placed down, not in rejection, not in waste, but in peace. Because not everything poured needs to be consumed. Not everything prepared needs to be finished. Sometimes the act of offering is complete on its own. You've been taught to finish everything you start, to empty yourself before you stop, to prove your value through how much you give, how far you stretch, how fully you deplete. But there is another kind of ending, one that doesn't require exhaustion, one that doesn't wait until your hands shake or your spirit frays. The monks call it sacred restraint, the ability to stop even when there's more left to give. Because peace isn't just found in the emptying, it's found in the choosing, the setting down, the quiet trust that fullness is not failure, it is wisdom. You don't have to pour everything out to be worthy of rest. You don't have to prove you've reached your limit to earn the right to stop. You are allowed to pause while still full of words, full of energy, full of thoughts and offerings and ideas. You are allowed to put the cup down, even if it still holds warmth. This is not abandonment. It is not incompletion. It is trust. Trust that what needed to be received was. Trust that the moment knows how to hold what's left. Trust that nothing poured is ever wasted, even if untouched. There is grace in walking away, not because you're empty, but because you're whole. Let that truth sit with you, like steam rising from a cup that no one drinks. Let it rise, let it soften, Let it become part of the room without needing to prove its purpose. You've been over-giving your whole life, staying one more hour, answering one more message, fixing one more thing, and each time you finished what was never yours to complete, you lost a little more breath. But now, you're learning something softer. You don't have to finish to be faithful. You don't have to run dry to be real. You don't have to empty your cup just to feel like you showed up. What if showing up was simply preparing the tea and knowing when to let it rest? You are allowed to stop, not because you're done, but because you've given enough for now. You don't need to be depleted to deserve silence. You don't need to collapse to justify stillness. You can stop while full, and that can be sacred. There is wisdom in knowing when the moment is complete, even if your hands still hold more to offer, even if your heart still stirs with warmth. That's the kind of rest that changes things. Not the rest that comes after exhaustion, but the rest that comes from inner trust. Trust that you don't need to drain to be meaningful. Trust that life doesn't always ask you to pour it all out. Trust that some beauty is in what remains. The monks speak of an elder who brewed a perfect cup of tea each morning but never drank it. He would place it on the altar, bow, and leave it untouched. When asked why, he said, "Sometimes presence is the offering, not consumption, not completion, just presence." You are that cup too. You are full of knowing, of kindness, of offerings that do not need to be extracted to have value. You've spent a lifetime being harvested for your energy, your availability, your compassion, your effort. But your soul was never meant to be endlessly poured. It was meant to rest too, to remain full sometimes, to be appreciated even in stillness. Let the tea be warm and untouched. Let the room be quiet and complete. Let your hands set down what they've carried, even if they could keep holding. Because enough doesn't always mean empty. It means aligned. It means you listened to the moment when your spirit whispered, "You may stop now." Even if there are more messages to reply to, even if there are more thoughts to speak, even if there's more inside you still rising to the surface, set it down anyway. Let the rest come, not because you're out of breath, but because you're ready to breathe differently. This isn't quitting. This isn't withholding. This is reverence. Reverence for your boundaries. Reverence for your own enoughness. Reverence for what does not need to be wrung dry to be real. You are still worthy even when you do less. You are still whole even when you do not give all. Set the cup down. Let it remain full. Let that be the sacred act. Not all offerings are meant to be used. Some are meant to simply exist. A gesture, a presence, a wholeness that asks for nothing in return. That is the fullness of your spirit tonight, poured not into action, but into being. No more waiting for collapse to justify your pause. No more proving your exhaustion as a badge of care. No more needing to empty to be seen as sincere. You are allowed to be the untouched cup, the still tea, the moment that completes itself by being placed gently down, even if others say, "But there's more to give." Even if the world whispers, you could keep going. Let them speak. Let them reach. Let them sip from their own beliefs. You are done. Not because you have nothing left, but because you finally trust that you do not need to give everything away to be enough. The monks say, "He who walks away with full hands has not wasted but honored the offering." And tonight, you walk away not hollow, not drained, but whole. This is not selfishness. It is self-recognition. This is not silence as punishment. It is silence as knowing. This is not quitting. It is knowing when the moment no longer needs more from you. There is peace in knowing that your value was never tied to output. Your worth was never the same as your usefulness. Your presence, even in stillness, is sacred. So rest, with warmth still in your chest, with thoughts still rising, with energy still humming under your ribs. Rest anyway, Let the tray remain. Let the steam drift upward. Let no one drink. And let that be okay. Because this was never about being consumed. It was about being present. You were the tea. You were the warmth. You were the gesture. And now, you are the one who walks away without finishing, without emptying, without apology. This is the sacred pause before anything breaks. The pause that honors what remains. The pause that trusts that sometimes enough is not what's used up, but what's set down with care. So, set it down now. Not because you're done, but because you're allowed to be. And walk away not lighter from emptiness, but fuller from peace. You are allowed to stop, even if you're still full. In the back room of the monastery, there is a paper window. It doesn't open wide. It doesn't frame the sky. It lets in only a sliver of the world, and only at night. But that sliver is enough, because each evening, when the lamps are dimmed and the walls fall into silence, a single beam of moonlight finds its way through. It doesn't ask to be seen. It doesn't force its light. It just arrives, soft, unspoken, steady. And for those who notice, it is enough to remind them peace is not always summoned. Sometimes it simply appears. You've spent much of your life reaching, stretching for meaning, grasping for calm, chasing what felt just out of sight, as if peace were a thing you had to climb toward, or earn, or hold still. But now, you're learning something quieter. That peace, real peace, does not come from effort. It arrives when you sit still long enough to see what was already shining in. The monks say the window was placed not to view the moon, but to remember that light comes even when you don't go looking for it. That you don't have to leave the room, or master yourself, or become worthy, to be touched by something holy. You only have to stop turning away. You've been turning away, not on purpose, not in rebellion, but in habit, in the rhythm of always doing, always fixing, always striving. You forgot how to be still and simply watch. Watch the way light enters quietly. Watch the way peace touches without asking. Watch the way the moon, which belongs to no one, still finds you. Even now, even here, even after everything, you do not need to rise for it. You do not need to prepare. You do not need to open all the doors and rush into the night. You can stay inside, stay quiet, stay uncertain, and still be touched. The paper window lets in just enough, not a flood, not a blaze, just a single beam that rests on the floor like a whispered invitation. And maybe that's what peace has always been, not a state to enter, but a presence to notice. Not a reward, but a rhythm that keeps returning as soon as you stop trying to possess it. You've tried to possess it, tried to hold stillness like a stone in your palm, tried to catch the light and bottle it. But light isn't meant to be kept, only seen, only received, only allowed. Tonight, let that be enough. Sit beside the window, don't open it wider, don't lean too far out, don't search for a better view. Just be where you are, and let the moon find you. You've spent your life thinking you had to go out and meet the light, as if stillness disqualified you from being seen. As if staying inside meant missing the sacred. But some light doesn't ask you to move. It comes to you, softly, without demand, without judgment. The moon has never asked you to be ready. It simply rises. And you only need to look, not with longing, not with desperation, just with eyes that have finally stopped searching the floor. This is the peace you've been reaching for, not in a breakthrough, but in a beam, not in a mountain, but in a quiet room, where you're no longer forcing clarity. Sometimes the truth is waiting at your side, but you miss it because you're facing the door. You've tried to escape your confusion by movement. You've tried to earn rest by doing more than you were ever meant to hold, but the window remains. The light still enters, and the message tonight is simple. You don't have to go anywhere to be met. You can sit in your room with questions still circling, with tears still drying, with no answer and no plan, and still be worthy of light, still be worthy of stillness, still be a witness to grace. The monks say peace is not found in solving. Peace is found in stopping long enough to see that nothing needs solving, only seeing, only sitting, only noticing that the moon, which belongs to no one, still comes to rest against your wall, as if to say, you didn't miss it, you only needed to turn your face. This is the great return, not to ambition, not to answers, but to presence. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not lost. You are sitting beside a paper window with nothing to prove and everything to feel. And the moon, quiet and undemanding, has found you. You didn't reach for peace, but you let it in. And sometimes, that's all it asks. There is a kind of grace that doesn't call your name. It doesn't knock on the door. It doesn't beg to be welcomed. It just enters through the cracks, through the quiet, through the opening you didn't know you left ajar. That is the moon tonight. That is peace. That is what you've been running toward but never had to chase. Because peace, like moonlight, doesn't belong to the fastest, or the most disciplined, or the most healed. It belongs to those who pause long enough to notice it resting in the corner of the room. There's no achievement in seeing the moon, only awareness. You could have stayed asleep. You could have drawn the curtain. You could have kept your eyes on the floor. But instead, you looked up. That's all it took. Not courage, not effort, just attention. And that attention, soft, gentle, quiet, became your invitation back to yourself. The monks say the moon does not teach, it reminds. It reminds you that nothing is as far away as it seems, that what you long for may already be arriving, that light does not need possession to be real, and that even in your stillness, you are not forgotten. Even when you stay inside, the light will find you. It will find your hands resting on your lap. It will find the silence between your thoughts. It will find the breath you didn't know you were holding and soften it. And when it does, you won't need to ask for more, because the truth is simple, and always has been. You didn't need to leave. You didn't need to search. You didn't need to reach. You only needed to stay and turn toward the light that has been arriving your whole life. Softly, without demand, without warning. Only love could shine this quietly, and only someone who has finally stopped trying could notice. So tonight, let the moon stay where it is. Let yourself stay where you are. Let the light enter. And know, you are not waiting anymore. You are not searching anymore. You are here, and the light is, too. Even if you stay inside, the light will find you. There is a moment, just before sleep, when something leaves you. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It simply rises warm, invisible, and then disappears into the night. A final breath. Soft, unheld, given back to the air without resistance. That breath was a burden. Not one you named, not one you understood, but one you carried, just the same. And now it's gone. This is what most people miss. They think rest is something to reach for, something to perform, something that comes after all the thoughts are sorted, after the pain is packed away, after the world is convinced they've done enough. But sleep doesn't come from effort. It comes from surrender. And surrender always begins with one breath you didn't know you were still holding. You've held so many, in silence, in strength, in survival. You've walked entire seasons of your life without ever letting your lungs truly empty. And so the weight built, not on your back but in your chest, in the shallow rhythm of a body trying not to feel too much, trying not to break. But breath is honest. It cannot lie. And tonight, as your body slows and the world around you forgets itself, you finally feel it. how much you've carried in the space between inhales. The monks say, every breath we release is something we no longer need. Fear, effort, old versions of ourselves. Each one tucked inside the breath we never allowed to fully leave. Until now. Now, you are exhaling. Not just air, but memory, expectation, obligation, the pressure to be anything other than here. And with each breath you let go, the body remembers something softer, that it does not have to earn this rest. That peace is not a reward. That stillness is not the absence of thought, but the absence of clinging. Let go now. Let go with breath. Let go with presence. Let go without needing to name what's leaving. You are lighter than you think. You always were. It was just hidden beneath all the things you thought you had to hold. And now, they're drifting from you with every gentle rise and fall of your chest. No force, no final answers, just breath. Misting into the night like incense, like offering, like truth too quiet to need a voice. Sleep does not come from trying. It comes from the breath you let go of, from the burden you no longer call your own, from the version of you that finally says, I do not need to carry this into tomorrow. The cold air takes your breath gently now. It lifts it, wraps it in silence, and carries it into the dark where all old things go when they are no longer needed. You do not need to follow it. You do not need to chase what leaves. Your only task now is to stay still enough to feel how much lighter you are without it. That breath was grief. That breath was fear. That breath was all the moments you braced without knowing you were bracing, and now you've let them go. Not in a grand ceremony, not with a declaration, but with an exhale no one else would have noticed except your soul. There is a sacredness in that. To release without applause, to surrender without a script, to end something not with noise but with rest. The monks say that sleep is not the closing of the day. It is the opening of surrender. It is not what you do after everything is finished. It is what begins when you finally stop finishing. And tonight, you are finished. Not because everything is complete, but because you have given enough. You do not need to understand tomorrow. You do not need to arrange your thoughts before entering rest. You do not need to wait for your breath to be perfect. You only need to release it. Release it like fog, like prayer, like a thread you've finally decided to untie. Each exhale is a quiet offering, not to the world but to yourself, a soft reminder that your body has always known the way home, and now it is taking you there, downward, inward, deeper into stillness than you've gone in a long, long time. The bed beneath you is no longer a place. It is a field. It is a temple. It is a sky where breath becomes starlight and sleep becomes arrival. You do not need to reach it. You are already within it. It is not outside you. It never was. It begins with what you left behind, with the final breath that rose in the dark and didn't return. So close your eyes now, not because you're supposed to, but because there is nothing left to watch. The world will wait. The questions will wait. The unfinished will wait. What cannot follow you into sleep was never meant to. Let it stay here. Let it drift upward. Let it mist the air one last time. And let it be done. Because tonight, you didn't escape. You didn't force rest. You didn't chase peace. You simply breathed. And in that breath you were free. Sleep does not come from trying. It comes from the breath you let go of. And now it is time. Not every journey ends with an answer. Some end with a silence, so soft it feels like being held by something older than thought. You have walked far, not in steps, but in stillness. You have listened long, not to a teacher, but to something deeper that moved beneath the words. And now the story has ended. But the story was never the point. It was only a path, a gentle path of breath and voice, winding through memories, through images, through truths that opened like hands. But even the most sacred path must vanish under your feet once it has brought you home. That is what this moment is. Not a finish, but a return. The voice will fade, the symbols will rest, the lessons will bow, and all that will remain is the only thing that ever mattered. Silence. Not the kind that means absence. Not the kind that means you're alone, but the kind that means you have finally arrived at the place where nothing more needs to be said. This silence does not ask. It does not explain. It does not repeat. It simply surrounds you, warms you, becomes you, because now there is no more performance, no more role, no more effort to become. You are not becoming, you are being, and being has no shape, only presence, only breath, only the subtle hum of a soul no longer searching. You have crossed a threshold, not into knowing, but into knowing without thought, not into rest, but into being allowed to rest. That permission is sacred, because you were never meant to carry awakening like a duty. You were only meant to hear the story until your own silence returned. And now it has. You do not need to remember every word. You do not need to write anything down. You do not need to summarize what you've heard. Because what remains now is not information. It is imprint. A subtle shift. A loosening you might not even notice until tomorrow, when you wake up with one less ache, one less grip, one less reason to hold your breath. That is the work of silence. It doesn't tell you what it's doing. It just does it. Quietly, faithfully, until even your resistance lets go without needing to be told how. This is not sleep. It's deeper than that. This is what happens when the story ends but the peace stays. There is nothing more to seek here. The teaching has stopped walking. The words have bowed. Now there is only a hush. A sacred hush in the shape of your own name. You are allowed to live softly now, not as an act of escape, but as a return to what was always inside you. Softness is not weakness. It is wisdom. The kind of wisdom that doesn't speak in declarations, but in the gentle rhythm of a heart that no longer fears stillness. You are allowed to let go again and again, not because letting go is easy, but because it's holy. It's what the flame did. It's what the tree did. It's what the candle did. It's what every symbol whispered to you along the way. And now you become the final symbol. You become the silence. Not the silence that follows speech, but the silence that was always there beneath the voice. The silence that stayed after the story. No more thoughts, no more steps, no more becoming, just breath, just presence, just you, the quiet one who didn't need fixing after all. And if you ever forget this moment, if you ever lose your way again, if the world makes you think you need to be more, return here. Not to the voice, not to the teaching, but to the hush that came after, the hush that asked nothing but offered everything, the hush that never left. And when no words remain, when all questions have bowed, when even your longing for peace has gone quiet, may you meet the only one that matters, stillness. And now I will say nothing more, because you have heard enough. Because something in you is already answering in silence. You've walked this garden of stories, not to gather, but to remember, not to hold, but to release. And now you have. You are no longer listening. You are becoming. The story has ended, but something sacred remains. Not a lesson, not a line, not a voice, but a quiet knowing. You are safe now. You are allowed to live softly. You are allowed to let go again and again. And if the world ever grows loud again, if your hands begin to close again, if the weight begins to build again, just return to this place. Not to these words, but to the stillness beneath them. Return to what stayed, and when you arrive, don't knock. Don't ask, don't explain. Just sit, close your eyes, breathe once more, and listen to the silence that never left you, the silence that has always been home. Now sleep, now rest, now be.